What happened to Mrs. Mime?
Divorce. It was rough.
Oh, I forgot they could probably hear you through it.
Hmm.
I'll leave it. I don't want to ruin anything.
Too late. Chaz ruins everything. If you can hear me without context, just know that Chaz ruins everything.
Alright, going live. Just jumping right into it. Hey, what's going on, everybody? EnteR ChazmaN here, and we're back with another episode of the EnteR ChazmaN podcast. I'm here with my buddy Phoenix. What's going on, Phoenix? How have you been since the previous episode that technically still doesn't exist because of audio troubles?
Oh, I don't know. I'm doing all right. Bonjour, everyone. I decided to get all in on this one. I've been obsessed with Clair Obscur over the last, it's only been like a week or two I've been playing it, but I feel like my whole life is now molding into like a French art piece. So
You mean you didn't just hop off the plane from vacation abroad? Real quick, just want to say what's up to Skylar Twilight in chat. Skylar says howdy. Thank you so much for joining. If you could, Skylar, just let us know how audio is. I know that was, once again, that was our main issue with the previous up, so any help would be welcome. But yeah, so if you guys can't tell, we're going to be talking about Clair Obscur Expedition 33. This kind of is the, I want to say it's kind of the it game so far for this year. I mean, along with, what would you say are even the other, like, competitors with, like, say, Game of the Year type talks? Would it be like Mario Kart, maybe a couple others?
Oh man, I hope not. I know Death Stranding 2 just came out, and that's doing fairly well in the review circuit, so that might rank high. But prior to this, and what else really came out this year?
Doom. I know Doom. I played Doom. It didn't really live up to. It was fine.
I played some smaller games, like I played Blueprints, Oblivion remake, but that's, a 15-year-old game now or something at this point, so nothing to the scale or I think to the quality level even that we've seen with Clair Obscur. So for me right now, it's my game of the year, but we'll get into that for sure.
Yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and Phoenix is super fresh. You literally just finished this game, correct? Within the last couple days?
Yeah. I put in probably about 50 to 60 hours. I finished the story a day or two ago, and I wrapped up all the side stuff last night. I pretty much 100% of the game, did all the achievements and all that stuff. So, yeah, I've just been kind of all consumed with it for the past week and a half or so. But very fresh.
Were you able to avoid because I tell you, a big thing that could possibly ruin this game, in my opinion, would be spoilers. Because you were playing a little later than everyone else, and I was trying to be as vague as possible with you and texts and stuff. So I feel like I'd ruin a couple things could ruin the whole thing, in my opinion.
I'd try to avoid it. This game luckily kind of just snuck up out of nowhere, I think, for most people, and then I kind of saw the buzz around it. Of course, it popped up at the same time as the Oblivion remake, and I really wanted to spend a little bit of time on that, so I kind of just pushed this off on the back burner for a little while, but didn't read any stories about it, anything like that. I don't think I was spoiled to any of the major plot points. There were a few things that I felt like I knew were coming, either from some marketing material or some screenshots here and there. Nothing I think that really spoils main plot elements, but I don't know. I didn't feel like anything was undercut as it happened in the game, so that was good. There are a few things I think as it's playing out, it can be a little expected, but we'll talk about that, some of the story beats, but the big reveals were definitely, left fresh for me to experience.
Yeah, I definitely got some mild in terms of just the fervor and I guess talk around the game. I was early on because I got to play it pretty close to right after it came out, and it felt very I guess Xbox to an extent was able to recreate and do it way better. The fervor around maybe a Hi-Fi Rush. Remember when they like shadow drop that, and it was like overnight. It was like, oh,
Mm.
everyone's playing this kind of. Or maybe Power World was kind of like that too. Xbox has been trying to do that a little more lately, just kind of dropping stuff kind of unexpectedly.
Well,
Not that this is
interestingly enough, too,
unexpected,
it's
but
not. It's also not, exclusively an Xbox title. Like, I mean, it's on what PlayStation. I know it's on PC. I'm pretty sure. I think the only thing that makes it kind of feel like it's in the Xbox camp is a day one Game Pass game.
mhm.
Um, but I don't know. Like the general initial hype, I for the most part just glossed over. So it didn't really get me going a particular direction with it, which I'm kind of glad. I didn't get caught up in any hype about it. I think it made I don't know. I'm really big about avoiding hype for a lot of games because the last few games I've gotten really behind. You can never truly live up to the hype with most games, so things always fall a little short. So not being hyped up for this helped a lot. I think it helped me kind of meet the game where it was at. So the big moments felt big and didn't feel, cheap or I was expecting more or anything like that.
Well, I can say that like I'll pat myself on the back. This was a game that I legitimately was pre-hyped for before like even any of the talk was because when they had showed this game initially, I think it was at the Game Awards the year prior. I just thought everything about the trailer, from what I was saying, looked like my type of game. It was like, oh, it's like
Mm.
a turn-based, some sort of turn-based RPG with an open world and like a interesting narrative and giant paintress lady who kills people. I don't know. I just thought everything
But how much
about
of
it.
the we can get into this in a bit more too, because I didn't watch a whole lot of the pre-release marketing or anything. Did they give the kind of hook for the game? Because like honestly, for me, that was like the biggest thing. Just the first like hour or so of the game where the hook slowly revealed too. So in the marketing, was that kind of already laid out as far as
In
people are dying every year, all that kind of stuff?
in the marketing, they had explained all. Well, they had explained that all you knew was that they had showed SGA, so that you knew there was some sort of like open worldness to it. You knew it was like a turn-based RPG with dodging mechanics, and then yeah, you just knew overall evil paintress lady dropping numbers down and killing everyone, and that's really all you really got with the narrative. They didn't really show. They luckily they didn't delve too deep into that, but yeah.
Mm,
Should before we go on, should
fair enough.
we? Or I was just gonna say, should we throw out if you can't tell, major spoilers for some of the things we're probably gonna mention? I would assume ruin the narrative for for anybody throughout this. So
Yeah, I mean, I figured we can start a little, high level with the discussion. I mean, I don't know if you got to look into any of the background of how this game kind of came out to
I
be, or
was
the
just
studio, or anything like that. But
I was gonna say, should we talk about first the developer and the amount of people that are like all the talk around? What was this? They were previously Ubisoft, right? It was a handful of Ubisoft former employees, from what I understand.
I think it was like two. I was only thinking like two Ubisoft employees. I don't know. Just to gotta throw it out there. If you haven't, Skill Up just put out like basically a documentary
I
on the
saw you
making of
said
this
that. I
game. It
didn't
was
even look at it.
Yeah, it was like a 2 hour long video. It's not even a review so much. It's just him. He started looking into like how this game came to be and the story behind the studio, and it's fairly wild. There's a couple of Ubisoft employees that kind of came together. The game director in particular was a Ubisoft employee who I don't think was feeling he was being utilized for his he wasn't doing the creative work that he was wanting to at Ubisoft. I feel like he wanted to do something a little more unique. They had a little more control over, from my understanding. So he kind of branched off, started pulling from old colleagues, old friends, old acquaintances he knew back in his college days, and
Hmm.
started slowly building out this studio. Some people just randomly stumbled across on some fairly obscure, pun intended, online forums for like finding the composer and
I
stuff
was
like
gonna say
that.
the
The
composer they
writer
found
came
on
from
like
Reddit.
yeah, they found him on like some online thing. They just some I don't know if you say intern, but somebody who like was fresh to the industry. I think he actually like worked in some other different industry. He came over from like
Yeah,
some crazy like I think he was like a lawyer or something. It was like the transition's funny.
almost nobody they brought over had any kind of game dev experience, besides I think the game director and I think potentially was this the level designer he brought with him, or
I
art
don't
director. I can't
remember.
remember. Very few. Most of them were all very green to industry. A lot of them didn't have any kind of real published work. The writer didn't ever have published anything. I don't think the music director had actually published any of his composed works. Like everybody was really fresh, really green to it. They just had a love for games and kind of stars aligned. But I won't go through and spoil the work that Skillup did on that documentary. If you're really interested, he already did a fantastic job. So check that out.
Should we
But it goes through.
Oh no, should we just mention that like the reason why that's such crazy with the composer, my opinion, this is shoe in for probably video game soundtrack of the year. I think in my opinion, without a doubt. I mean, Mario Kart's is pretty good, but like to me, this is like easy.
Nowhere near this, especially for originality. Mario Kart, I'm trying to downplay what they did. Most of those songs are just recompositions of songs they've already had in other games.
Yeah, this is entirely
jazzed
fresh.
them up and rearranged them. Yeah, and like we'll I don't want to go too deep into all the specifics there, but I do think yes, this is one of the most solid video game soundtracks, or just plain soundtracks I've heard in a very long time. But you could say that about just about every pillar in this game, from the art direction to the gameplay to the music to the design of the world. Like everything about this is so top notch, and to think that these people who have never had any experience in game dev just magically kind of like stars aligned, got yanked together to spit out this incredible piece of work.
It's
once again, very interesting to check out the full documentary.
Since you mentioned it, in my opinion, it's the perfect representation of like borrowing from other artworks and mixing them together and making your own thing. Like you can see the influences of like Final Fantasy VII, Persona, Super Mario RPG. You can see like so many classic RPGs from like the 90s and 2000s you can see mixed in here. It's really, really well done.
Yeah, I mean, I think more than anything else, it's a sign of someone who had a really clear vision for what they wanted, and was able to really see the talent in different people and how to utilize that to its full capabilities. Like a lot of times, you have talent under your or in your wings or in your industry, or how do I want to say this? Under your roof, but you don't know how to utilize it appropriately. Sometimes you reallocate it the wrong way, or you don't give people enough control or enough resources to really do the job they could do the best. So it sounds like this game director was able to see exactly what everybody's, particular skill set was that they could excel at, and then just let them do that with a very clear vision. So I don't know. This is kind of what happens when, as I said, all the stars kind of align. You got a lot of talent, and I don't know. I don't feel like we see games like this very often.
No.
When I say that, something that is not compromised in any way or feels like it's catering to someone or something. Like, this is a game that these developers wanted to make with a very clear, as I said, focus and vision. And it came out exactly, I would imagine, how they intended. I'm sure, of course, there's always things they could have probably wished they would have or could have done, but this game feels about as perfect as you can get in most cases. Not that I don't have critiques, but anything I say on a critique side is really just a nitpick. Like, the quality and execution of this alone is top-notch across the board.
It sounds like it's Russell and your game development GBs a little bit. Messing with
yeah, but I don't have time for that no more.
Yeah.
No, moved on.
And also,
if you haven't, check out the background. I just want to spit that out again because it's an incredible documentary by Skillup. So check that out if you get a chance.
And just to real quick to speak on the size of the team, just a quick. I heard that like the overall main development team was like a little over 30 people, which is like insane for a game like this. And I saw someone compare it that like. So a little over 30 people. I'm sure there's far more people involved, but like the main studio was like around over 30. The wing alone within Activision that does the microtransactions for the Call of Duty team is like 140 people. Just the microtransaction team at Activision. So it's like.
Now let's try this again. Sorry about that. Hopefully
I'll just
throw up all your.
No, I'll just go play Clair Obscur now.
Yeah, there you go.
But I don't know. So where did you want to begin things? I just wanted to mention that out. That like it really is the scale and scope of considering the amount of experience with the development team and the size is like insane in my opinion.
So I do find it interesting. I mean, this is definitely like one of those underdog stories in many ways, or from rags to riches, but. This team did end up coming across a lot of support at a certain point. Like, as you said, I mean, the team itself ranged, I think if you look at some of the actual, like, numbers, it's like 40 to 50 people.
Sure,
like,
there's a lot more.
Core people.
Yeah.
But when you look at the full credits, there's like 400 people. The voice talent they ended up getting for this
Oh,
game
it's
with
so good.
Circus and Ben Starr,
Yeah, Ben
like
Starr.
Charlie Cox. You don't just get those people as an unknown entity. So
Mm-hmm.
clearly, I think part of it is probably when they were doing their initial pitches, the vision must have been just really, really solid for how they were showing this game off for funding and to get some publishing publishers on the line. And it sounds like I think it was Kepler Interactive was a publisher they went with. That publishing agent really did a great job of facilitating them to have the resources and to make the right partnerships and connections so they could get that extra bit of quality to really kind of take this over the top. Because I'm not saying they couldn't have found other voice actors that could have done a great job, but not half this game, a large portion of this game that I think sells it is the quality voice acting, just the acting in general, and then all the kind of layers on top of that. So if you extract any of those pieces, I mean, do you still end up with the same game? Like, I mean, structurally, sure, but I don't know. I guess where I'm going with this is they did have a lot of
Yeah.
support that I think
Mm-hmm.
came in to really kind of push us over the edge. Something else that the game director mentioned that I just want to throw out real quick that I thought was really cool was the fact that Unreal Engine was really, I think, kind of like the catalyst that made this game even feasible. I don't know how much you know about game engines or how many people in chat kind of look between the differences. Unreal 5 is like the big one. There's a bunch out there. But it's so user friendly, I think, and it's
Mm-hmm.
able to let small teams do so much with so little. Like this game looks beautiful, and in a different engine, it would not have looked or ran nearly as well. So I think what the director was basically saying was he found it just so approachable and so easy to actually pull everything together with basically a shoestring budget and a really small team. But this technology is really what kind of took it over the next level. And there were a bunch of other advances in technology too that made it possible. Like they could do facial capture with their iPhones now, so they didn't have to have some big fancy
What?
equipment
I
to
didn't
do
even know that.
accurate facial captures.
Huh.
Yeah, so I think just the advancements in technology in the past few years with game dev and the engines and all these other different like motion support or motion capture devices, that I think really helped them take this game for not just a cool idea that I'm sure still would have been a fun game, but really take it to this really like a AAA experience. I'm not really one to like to define things as AA, AAA, all that, because I think it doesn't always have the right connotation, but something that has this level of quality and fidelity, the technology, I think, is really a big push
Mm-hmm.
behind that to help them realize their vision.
No. Yeah. I don't know. So, do you want to start?
Oh, I
Actually,
do want to
oh,
mention
go ahead.
there's one other really crucial member to their team. I don't know if you saw it. Their happiness manager. Did you see that?
Oh, like someone who's
There's a
actually
dog
brought
that's on
on.
their staff.
Oh, okay. I thought an actual person for happiness. I know.
They have a dog on their staff named Minoko, and he is their
Oh,
company's happiness manager, which
oh,
I
that's
thought that was
adorable.
interesting. But, yeah,
Yeah, I know. How many other development studios could use a happiness coach?
man, I
Looking
could
at
use one every day.
yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Take it away. Where did you want to? What jumped out to you like immediately? Like, I guess we could start at the beginning of the game. Like, what did
So I guess
the
like
premise in
initial
general?
thoughts. Well, let's do this as before we get into like narrative and all that, because I think that's going to get us into the weeds. Let's
Mm-hmm.
do a high level if you're cool with that. We'll kind of
Yeah.
approach it, maybe just initial thoughts and kind of break down like things like the art, the sound. We've kind of talked about it a little bit. We can just revisit some of that gameplay, and then maybe we can get into the narrative and story beats. Because depending how far you want to get into spoiler territory and
Yeah.
theories, there's a lot to discuss there. So
The
we'll go down some rabbit holes, I'm sure.
I did just want to say like I really wanted to applaud kind of the dedication to. I mean, I know a lot of the people associated with this are it's a French studio, French development team, but it's like it's really cool that they went so all out with incorporating so much of their like artistic aspect of their culture into the game. Like I
Hmm.
wasn't there was like I mean just about like every art like I can honestly say that this is not a game that feels like it's ever been I don't think there's anything like this artistically. Like
Hmm.
would you say?
Yeah.
I don't know what other game you could be like, "Oh, this game is like looks like Clair Obscur," you know what I mean? It is wholly
And what's
unique.
really what's really interesting about that too is when they were doing their initial versions of this game before Clair Obscur was Clair Obscur, they were going with a Victorian theme. Had nothing to do with French, was more steampunky.
Which, thank
And then
goodness,
I
they
think
did.
they were doing like a
Yeah.
I mean, not that would have been necessarily bad, but it definitely would not have stood out the way you're saying. There's plenty of, Victorian steampunk style games out there. Fable and stuff like that kind of comes to mind. So I think the fact when they did this reboot, they kind of wanted to bring things a little closer to home and kind of really represent their nationality a little bit through it. It does a few things. For one, it makes it unique because we don't have a lot of games that really take, Paris as kind of a main locale in the game.
Hmm.
And it also, and I'll mention this somewhere in here, but I'll just mention it now. It really helped me be more intrigued at the very beginning of the game because you have this level of familiarity too with this world because we know Paris, and not saying we know it intimately or anything like that, but we're familiar with Paris and the landmarks and things like that. And then to see it in this really, weird, stylized, distorted viewpoint, for me that really was a striking way to start the game because without knowing anything of the premise, because I didn't know anything about the paintress or her background or whatnot, I'm just seeing this city that I'm somewhat familiar with, and I'm already struck with the question of, okay, why is it like this? Like the narrative, without them ever saying anything, is already kind of pulling me in to want to know exactly what happened. I found with a lot of game worlds, when they're not familiar in that same aspect, I'm dropped into a game like, I don't know, Oblivion or something like that. And it's a cool world, it's beautiful, and I'm like, okay, cool, let's see what happens. But I'm not intrigued to ask why things happened. I don't know if that makes sense. This game, without ever saying a word, just because of its locale, the stylized aspect of it, it really brings a level of intrigue that a lot of the game worlds just don't usually do for me. Not saying that other games aren't good and they don't have a different way of kind of presenting the world and the narrative to you, but I really liked that familiar slash, altered viewpoint they did with the Paris landscape.
Yeah, and again, like speaking to the uniqueness, I think that it really helps the long term favorability in terms of just how memorable this game is going to be for like this is going to be like in my opinion this is going to be like I don't know like a Final Fantasy VII down the line where like it had like everyone knows about the main city. I can't remember the name of all the stuff,
Oh,
but like
Midgar?
Midgar, like Midgar has
Yeah.
a super a distinct look and personality, and I feel like this game is gonna very much feel like that down the line. It almost makes me curious, like, because again, this is the studio's first game. Like, are they gonna try and translate? I'm curious. I don't know what the heck the next game. Apparently, I think they are already working
Yeah.
on their next game, and it's like I don't know what the heck the next one's gonna look like.
Yeah, I don't know. I have some thoughts about sequel talk we may get to towards the end. But who knows? I mean, who knows if they do something completely different or if they kind of do go tangential to this or something in the same vein. Only time will tell, I suppose.
Yeah.
But anyways, if kind of keep with the art direction for just a little bit. Um, Man, I think one of the other things I liked is just how diverse I mean, really everything in this game gets pretty diverse as you move throughout the landscape.
Oh, the
But
different
the
biomes
different
and stuff.
locales,
Yeah.
yeah, like I mean, the very beginning of the game, of course, is striking, and the way it kind of moves between like that very dark, like blood-rich cave, like
I
this
actually
open
feel
kind of
like
sunlit environment.
the beginning areas are fairly basic. I don't think it really.
So
The change doesn't feel drastic till you get to the underwater, and then for me it was like, whoa, okay, they're doing different things here.
I agree, but one thing I do really appreciate about the beginning, and without I think hitting all the story beats, I mean that very beginning when you land on the continent,
Hmm.
really dour, right? And, like everything's awful, and you're dropping these
Yeah.
really bleak environments, artistically and thematically. And then there's just this immediate juxtaposition to this just bright, open, kind of grassy, almost like man, what's a good word for it? Ethereal kind of feels. Like, yeah, they're simple, but I kind of appreciated that. Just kind of go between those two different extremes, something very, very dark, and then something very, very just kind of light and palatable. So you're right, it's not the most unique biomes they had throughout the game. It definitely steps it up pretty quickly. But I think just for setting tone and theme there at the beginning, I think that was a really important choice they made. But I will say, yeah, when they got to the flying water section, my jaw kind of hit the floor on that because I mean we see a lot of underwater stylized levels in games. Something about the way they did this, like you're underwater but you're not underwater, and there's the
Hmm.
reflections on things, was done so well. The whale kind of swimming at the top of the level, but I don't know. It was a really cool, really feeling to kind of be in that art landscape. Because once again, it felt like you were underwater, but not really. I don't know. It was
And
neat.
that's also the first place where you fight one of the gigantic things that if you're not careful, they swallow you up during battle. Oh
Oh, the
man,
Burgeons.
the Burgeons. That's your first time fighting one of those, and like it's just insane. You're fighting like this big, massive Titan creature underwater, and
Hmm.
it's just like I don't know. And the fighting in general with the Burgeons is super unique. That's we'll get into combat, but like that, the uniqueness of the combat is fascinating as well. But back to the I really feel like once you hit the open world, that's when you start seeing. I mean, obviously, you start seeing all of the different biomes and other like. I feel like that's where the game really shines in terms of the diversity in all of the locations.
Hmm.
Man, I mean, you have massive structures. There's the one tower of with the sister where there's all the weird little toys building. Their weapons are all like building tools. You have that. You
Yeah, the
have
Reacher Tower.
yeah. You've got a beach, the beach with all the weird little games going on. Um, there's mountains, caves. I mean, there's like just about everything you can imagine, kind of going on
And not
there.
to make it sound overly generic, because not that there's not just a bunch of biomes, they're all artistically diverse too. Like every one of them has a unique artistic direction. It's not just like it's a beach.
And
It's
there's
a
a theme.
beach with a very particular twist or feel to it that makes it very Clair Obscur. Like I
and
haven't seen or really experienced that same kind of look for that type of environment.
and there's like a thematic story as to why generally that place is like that, which is really cool. Like
Yep.
it's not just oh I've come across a giant building. It's oh no, there's a story why these things are here building this building, or there's a reason why these gestrels are over here doing this ridiculous. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah,
a lot
everything
of
was done
thought.
with intent.
Hmm.
There was a lot of story or some lore section behind it. Even the quote unquote optional side stuff, it feels so well thought out and tied into the main narrative. Like this is a really good example. This whole game of just good world building. It's not just a good story. It's all the kind of interconnected pieces with the species and the why they're there and the how they interact and like the history between it. Like a lot of thought went in here. And you can criticize the why, like the direction the story beats went, or even the lore, like if you really want to dig into it. But the fact that it's there, that much thought was put in there, it wasn't just like we have these weird gestrels and there's no reason why, or why do they have these type of camps or anything like that. Like they give you the reason for almost all of that.
Oh,
But yeah, artistically, this game's incredible.
and then also you have the story. I totally forgot another thing that helps contribute to the themes and the story of each areas is you also have those collectibles of the recordings and the memory of the previous adventurers
Mm.
of the previous expeditions, and it's like they're generally the how they meet their demise has something to do with the place that you're in. So it's like
Yeah.
there's even further like context as to like the team and also the region. It's really
Yeah,
crazy.
and
Yeah.
that kind of ties into good, not only like world building, but good level design too. Like where they placed those logs, like it all very much made sense. You got to see the scenes of those expeditions. I know we're kind of jumping off the the art side of things, but
Hmm.
you'd find a journal. It wouldn't just be like this random journal that had nothing to do with where you're at. You'd a lot of times see the lost expedition there. There was one. What was it? I found the journal, and the last thing they said was to help the next expedition, they use their bodies to build a bridge so you can move to the next section. I don't know if you found this. It's kind of a side
There's a
area.
lot of side stuff I didn't do. I need to really. I definitely want to get back to that stuff.
But then, like, as soon as you turn the corner, there's the bridge made out of these expeditioner bodies. Like, it's all very well tied in that. If you don't take the time to grab the journals and read it, it's just this weird, creepy bridge. But they give you the context for all these things, and of course, artistically, it's done really well. I do want to ask before we shift too deep into different kind of aspects of the
Hmm.
game. Visually, what were kind of your favorite areas? Because I have like two or three. I know we talked a lot about the different biomes. Were there any that really kind of stood out to you as like, man, this place is just kind of spectacular, or things you didn't like either?
Honestly, honestly, to me, some of the smaller places were some of the coolest looking locations. Like there was one area you pull into where like a big massive battle happened, and it's just swords. It's just swords sprinkled
Mhm.
everywhere, and some battle happened there, and you're just like, I want to know what happened here. what happened here? You never find out some
Yeah.
battle, but like I'm sure in the lore you
Oh,
probably
you
know.
you do find out.
But like it's so cool some of that stuff, and that's only like an area you walk into and you grab an item and you run out. There's nothing like it's
Hmm.
just a big battlefield. And that area, funny enough, is located next to another giant battlefield. That's an actual full area that you. That's actually probably one of my favorite areas there, just because of
Yeah.
the amount of bodies and stuff. It like the bodies almost act like walls directing you to where you're going. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, so that's probably a favorite area. Gosh, I would just say the open world in general. I never thought about it, but like now that I'm thinking about it, the open world in general, when you're like hovering over it, it kind of feels like you're looking down on an art piece itself.
Hmm.
Like, isn't that kind of
It's
cool?
it's extra stylized.
Yeah.
I think part of it is it kind of has that blurred edges. It's like, and the different proportions, because it's kind of that old school world map style where your
Mm-hmm.
characters are just a little bigger than they should be, so it's almost toy-like. So it almost feels like
I didn't
claymation
even
in
think about
some
it. I got the
ways.
sword
Like,
placed on screen, so on my on the main.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, good. Sorry, good.
No, I was just saying, yeah, I agree. I think it's a very stylized world map, even more so than just the individual environments, but it makes things, stand out. And I think it's nice. And it does come across me a little, I don't know, cheesy, but I think once you kind of know the whole game, it doesn't really feel that way. But like each little biome, at least on the map, is very tightly contained. Almost feels like, in Kingdom Hearts where you're flying to a little, planet. The whole planet's kind of like popped together in this little blob with all the landmarks kind of squeezed together. That's kind of how the world map feels. It's always little blobs of different biome landmark structures, and it expands, of course, once you get into it.
Yeah. But yeah, there's I don't know, gosh, I can't remember all of them, but there's another place that really stood out. Um Goodness, I don't know. Well, what about you? I'm
Sorry.
having trouble remembering. There's so many.
Um, yeah, I mean there are a lot. You could probably, if you really went through it, just about every biome probably has a unique section of it. But the big ones for me, the flying waters, of course. I think that just,
Oh,
when
well,
you first
yeah.
hop in there,
Yeah.
that really hits you hard. There was this, I think it might have been side dungeon or something. I can't remember exactly where it was, but there's a part where you go like to this underground section, and you're clearly underground, but there's like these little like foggy clouds, like space galactic clouds all at the top. So it's almost like you're in space. I don't know if you got to that area or not. So it's like,
I
I
probably
don't know, it's
not.
really weird, kind of dream-like, ethereal area. And it's just one little section, but it really kind of popped out at me. And the other one that I really liked, going to the Paintress at the very end, just walking up to that battle. I guess not the very end, because it's kind of halfway through the game, but that candle-lit path to the Paintress. You know what I'm talking about as you're
I know.
approaching the
Yeah,
monolith.
yeah, I remember.
I remember when I first landed there, in that section, I'm like, oh man, I hope this isn't gonna be like some real long, drawn out like fight to get to the Paintress. And then I landed there and I saw this little candle path. I'm like, oh, it'd be kind of nice if this is all it was. And then, of course, as you walk, you realize that's all this is this somewhat extended pathway that lets you kind of somberly walk up to the Paintress. So if one had good tone and theming, but it was also just visually really cool. You see the Paintress slowly get a little bigger as you approach her. And
Mm.
I don't know, artistically, honestly, almost, I won't say more so than music, but probably one of the things that really comes across and strikes me about this game is the art direction. Feels a little Elden Ringy or something like that in some ways, where I don't know, everything's a little distorted, but with a lot of purpose, and I liked it.
Actually, there is another place I did want to mention now that I'm thinking about it. I loved the mansion, especially when you consider just we'll get into talk about story and stuff, but like when you first in the mansion, you see all the doors, all of them are locked, and you're just like, oh, what's going on here? But then later on, when you start
Mhm.
you digging in, you finding out like the story behind the mansion and how it fits itself into everything. It's is really cool. I don't know. I liked the
Yep.
mansion, and then like in the mansion, you have like all these art pieces that are like spread out all over the place, and some of them like show some like story elements, and I don't know, another really well done
What's cool too, this
aspect.
game, and they do it in the manner too, is they kind of show you story stuff without you realizing it's story stuff. And I think
Hmm.
that's a really good kind of telltale sign of a well written or well thought out game where they can even be giving you hints and stuff throughout the entire storyline or your gameplay. and you don't realize how important some of those beats were until the reveals happen. So I think that's just really smart storytelling. So you actually then look back, make second playthroughs really interesting. Like next time I go to the manor for their very first time, I'm going to be looking at those paintings a little bit differently. Were you able to open up all the doors in the manor? Did you get that far?
I don't think so. I got a lot of them, but I don't think I got everyone. Which
Okay.
dang, I'm like,
I won't spoil anything.
I'm already super excited for my a new Game Plus playthrough. I really want to play a second one because I want to see. We'll touch on narrative, but I want to see how the narrative changes with you knowing what's actually happening in the world because it drastically changes. Well, we'll talk about it later, but yeah,
I will recommend before doing New Game Plus, I would try to do as much of the game in game in your original playthrough before going to New Game Plus because it's
I was
going to
do that anyways. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of means get as close to 100% as you want, and then shift over. In other words, I think you'll might be put off by some of the later content if it's too challenging. But
I put it on the easiest difficulty. The game was kicking my butt. I had it on medium.
Oh,
the game was kicking my butt, dude. You want to know where I got stuck on?
Like the first battle?
No, it was the lamp guy, dude.
Lamp Master, really?
Lamp Master was kicking my ASS, man. He would do one attack.
Really?
I think that was before I like really understood like the parrying and stuff. Like I was doing the dodging, but I couldn't get the timing down for the parrying. And then later on, like, well, I started figuring it out, and I'm like, well, I'll just leave it on this difficulty. But
fair enough. When we get to the gameplay, there's a lot I want to say about the parrying and dodging, but yeah, it can be off-putting, and if you don't click with the parrying relatively quickly, I think it was the first thing I texted you when I started playing was like, man, I can't dodge or parry for the life of me.
yeah.
And even towards the end, it was hard because every enemy has a different parry window and animation, so I can understand. I didn't have a huge amount of difficulty issues, but I get it. But still, I wouldn't put it on baby mode.
Yeah, it almost feels like a so gameplay again, but like it almost feels like a rhythm game to an extent. Like once you start getting into the music and you're like, I don't know, like I feel like I was slowly getting entranced where I'm just like dodge, 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 parry, parry, dodge, dodge, parry, dodge, and it's like I don't know.
So I think what helps with that too is really good sound design. I'm not just talking about like the arrangements of the music and whatnot, the score, but one of the big triggers that I was able to kind of tack onto for a lot of the battles wasn't so much the visual animations, I mean, partially, but almost everything has a very unique sound when it's about to attack. So if you're listening, you can kind of hear that and the rhythm or the cadence of how like an attack's going to build up, and then it kind of snaps for a second, and then something strikes you. So that was one way I was able to kind of start working my way through the combat, just listening differently.
And I can actually
tell sound
you,
design. That's kind of the next.
Oh no, I was gonna say I can actually tell you the battle where I started to really figure it out was you're helping this one Gestural out, and oh gosh, I'm trying to remember the quest line. There was this one quest line where you were helping this Gestural, and he was having you fight his what do they had? They had like their automata Sakapatatas, the ultimate Sakapatata, whatever. That was the battle where
potatoes.
That was the ultimate.
Is that what it is? Sack of potato? Is that a play on the word? Sack of patata?
Yeah.
Because that's what they look like.
Probably.
Huh.
Well, gestures are funny like that, so it's not like surprising.
Sack of patata.
All right, sorry, go ahead.
That's funny. No, I remember what I was going to say. I guess I was trying to transition us over into the sound before getting to gameplay, because that kind of hits on the sound design for not just battles, but we've already kind of hit on this. The music in this game, kind of fantastic. It's very diverse. I like it's not one kind of tonality or one kind of music style for the entire game. Like it bounces around a lot. It goes anything from like this really operatic kind of vocal structure early on in the game. Then you get to like accordion music with the mimes and some sax solos with the gestrals. You get like metal music towards the end, like the last couple of battles, like a lot of variation.
There's the one
genres,
freaking.
nice.
There's like the one techno song that happens. I think it's for Monaco or whatever, and it's just like, dude, it's like so good. I think it's called "Rain from the Ground" or something. There's some techno. Yeah. It's like a techno beat, and it's like dun, dun, dun. I don't know. It's really great.
It's so rare, and this is just more chops to the music director, but someone able to compose in so many different genres is really rare. Like most people kind of find their niche and they can write music really well for a style, and when you ask them to shift genres, it's a nightmare. This guy was just bouncing around all over the place, and just about everything was a banger. I don't think there were a few songs maybe were a little overly melodramatic sounding, but I think that was intentional. But
Yeah.
everything I enjoyed.
And then you get to the
Whenever they release a vinyl for this, I'm all on it.
yeah. And then you get to the Renoir fight like midway through when you first fight him,
Hmm.
and they have that song with the guy and the girl that are like singing off of each other, and it's like so epic. Renoir with his like lion form or whatever the heck he was freaking throwing at you.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's pretty great.
Like the game's never afraid to go over the top, which I think a lot of people would kind of look at it maybe as a little much sometimes, but I was all in on it. I mean, I think especially too when you think about the artistic themes in this game, like I think it just fits to be over the top during certain portions with the music really kind of crescendoing, and of course, the visuals just being off the wall during certain battles. Like I don't know,
It
they
feel
really knew how
it
to sell certain moments with all that.
They really. I mean, it feels super typical. It feels like a well done but typical Japanese, of course, Japanese RPG like story where it's like very Final Fantasy-ish where you have like downright sadness with people having loss and going through all this stuff, and then the next thing you know, you're like climbing a floating tower, trying to get a bathing suit. Like it goes into all sorts of like funny directions, and then again the gesturals just add like I don't even know what they are. They're like the what is the Jar Jar Binks people, whatever.
Oh, the Gungans.
Yeah, they're like
the Gungans of this world.
They're like the
Yeah.
Gungans of this world, pretty much.
Yeah. And I will say, and this we can shift over in a minute. This game is really big about changing tones a lot, which I think at first I found a little jarring because this game starts out super sad, like
Mm-hmm.
super down. For the first like hour, it's like holy crap. And I think what it did is first kind of switch where the tone started changing, like the characters like were interacting differently. It almost felt wrong. I think the fact that it wasn't so dour and kind of off
Well,
was kind of messed with me a little bit. I kind of missed that tone, but it comes back. But the game bounces back and forth. I
but
think when you get to the end, it kind of starts clicking why.
but you need that early on because you need to you need to make things feel serious. You need things to feel real and the sense of like danger for everybody.
Well, I guess my point is I would have almost liked it to stay that way longer.
Throughout?
I do feel like
Oh,
this
okay.
game not necessarily throughout, but I feel like it does lighten up pretty quickly. Like once you get Mael and things that kind of open up, and this is kind of shifting over into like gameplay design and whatnot. It feels like the developers are at that point. It's like, okay, you got a little party set up. We want you as the player to pause for a moment and just explore, spend some time with the game systems, learn how to play the game. So they didn't want to kind of push you to this more dour next step in the narrative. That's when I think they were opening up to like go to the gesturals and stuff like that.
Could you say that the drastic changing of tones? Could you say that again? Spoilers for the game. Could you say that is tied into because this whole world is technically tied to? Is it tied to? Actually, no, it's not tied to Mayo. I was gonna say it's tied to the Paintress, right? This whole world is created by the Paintress, not Mael.
Well, it's created by like 3 different people. It's not one person's creation, and I think we definitely are jumping way ahead.
Well, because you were,
I don't think that's why there's a juxtaposition. I mean,
she's a child.
I think there's
also
just
like I don't know. I don't know if it was a reflection of like
I feel like this was a
innocence, but also sadness.
I mean, I'm not saying there aren't some little underlining thematic cues there that kind of relate to what you're saying, but I think really it felt like a game design decision, kind of going into that, where they really wanted to set this dark narrative to kind of set some stakes, which they did. And then I think they needed you to then be able to spend some time, open up the world a little bit, because this game does slowly evolve as you play through it. It feels really linear at first, when you're first kind of going through the prologue and the first part on the continent, and then you have the map open up. And I think they were trying to give you a way to, I don't know, not feel so stressed kind of going through those areas and learning the systems. Because honestly, this game, systems-wise, has a lot to learn. Like, really getting used to the combat. As you said, the combat's a lot to take in initially, learning the parries and the dodges and all that kind of stuff, and then figuring out what the heck is a Pictos and a Lumina, and why are those important, and how do I get those systems going. So I almost feel like they probably shifted the tone just to give you some breathing room. And I could be very wrong. Not every game does that. They want to keep a dour tone the whole time. But if I look at it with that in mind, I appreciate the shift a little more. Other words, it just felt, I don't know. I don't know. I don't pause in here, but I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. I like downer games, maybe 'cause I'm a downer person. So I think when they shifted off of that, it felt odd for me because
Yeah, you love
I don't know,
Returnal.
me as a person, I wouldn't be able to switch like that. Like if I was Gustav and I just saw, for one, my girlfriend get flowered away, and then I saw my whole team get slaughtered. Um, I don't think I'd be going on a happy adventure anytime soon. I'd be pretty much done and dour. And I feel like Gustav switches pretty quick. Maybe it's because he's a better person than I am, fake person.
Robert,
But
you
I don't know.
mean?
That's getting neither here or there. Yeah. We can keep on moving. I don't want to
It
get
was.
trapped too far
I
in
never
that.
found out. Did they pay Rob? I mean, it's obviously Robert Pattinson's likeness.
There's been no official confirmation that I've seen about that. I mean, it does look like him. It is different. It's not like it is a one-to-one, but there are some very striking familiarities there. I don't know. To my understanding, they did not actively try to model it after Robert Pattinson. But man, it kind of sounds like when The Last of Us first came out. What's their name? Thought that they modeled Ellie after him.
Elle Fanning,
The
or no, not
Juno.
Elle,
Um,
Elliot Page.
you know, yeah.
Yes.
And I think that was a whole thing. And I don't necessarily think that they had modeled the character after him. So I don't know. This could just be a odd kind of coincidence. There are other people who have similar features, and Gustav I think is unique enough. But if they ever do a live action, it will be stupid not to pick Robert Pattinson. I'll just say that.
Because he's a cheap
All
get.
right. Yeah. Well, I don't know. This game's gonna have some money when this is all said and done. And if you think about the talent they already got in it, they clearly had some monies to float around. Like I can't imagine it's cheap to get Andy Serkis. Like, just saying. All right. Let's shift into combat if you want. Is there anything else you want to say about like art design or sound or anything like that?
Not really. I feel like I'm good. It's great.
Um,
Go play it.
so we've already kind of started dabbling with the combat discussion. So you liked the turn-based? Was there anything about the turn-based that threw you off?
I mean, you had mentioned it earlier. I would find it hard. I would be nitpicking if I chose anything. Honestly, if I were to pick, this has nothing to do with combat, but if there's one aspect of the game I would nitpick on, it would be the platforming. That's one of the few things that I would say I disliked about the game. But as far as the combat itself, man, I wasn't terribly enthralled by a lot of the shooting mechanics that were kind of going on. I mean, I understand why they were there, but
Interesting.
I don't feel like it was that. I don't know. I understood why it was there. It was to add like a different mechanic in terms of trying to drop guards for enemies. Because a lot of the times, if you wouldn't do that, they would either it would drop their multiplier for like how hard they're hitting you, or it would drop their defenses for. And what I mean by that is like generally, and a lot of times in battle, a lot of the characters will have like a glowing bubble or glowing ball on them or something, and if you shoot that, it generally weakens them in some sort of way. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I didn't really find the gun mechanic all that like intriguing.
That's fair. I mean, I can appreciate that it does. It's a very different feel than like your actual, selection of skills and things like that. I
Mm,
appreciate because I've already, well, I guess because I played some turn-based games, already kind of had that mechanic built in. Some of the Personas did something similar. And from a strategic standpoint, it was really helpful for setting up certain counters, as you kind of were alluding to, either breaking a weakness or a with a guard, or setting up a certain type of stain for a character through a shot. Like there's a lot
hmm
of reasons to shoot somebody in certain ways to set up certain combos. Like eventually your shots
Yeah.
could add bird or add multipliers or whatever it was. So I liked it from the adding that extra little strategic element. But if you weren't going with that in mind, you weren't trying to use it as a setup for something, I could see how it felt like this extra step that may have slowed down your combat a little bit.
And the fact that it was tied to your MP also, at least it wasn't something you could like spam. It's like you have to be very careful.
Mhm.
It's like this is burning through your MP, which if you nonstop use this, because that's something I didn't even realize until like a quarter through the game. I'm like, why am I always running out of MP? I don't
Oh,
know.
you didn't realize your shots were
Yeah,
taken.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, where's my MP always disappearing to? and later on I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, that
To its credit, the game does have systems to, offset that. We can get into this with like the pictos and stuff, but you can have it set where when you shoot somebody, if you set them on a mark and then you were able to shoot that mark again, you fill up all your AP again. So there's ways to like
and
self-regenerate using those shooting mechanics.
since we're talking, I just thought about a critique now that I was thinking about that. That would be my one critique, because I don't think the game does a great job of explaining every aspect and exactly how deep they connect to one another in terms of the
Oh yeah.
combat. Um, Again, like something like the MP being used up by the gun, I'm sure maybe it mentioned it somewhere, but that's something I didn't quite understand. And then, like you were saying, the explanation of the pictos and I feel like they do explain it, but there were some times where I'm like, I
It's like
didn't
a one and
realize.
done, and you could
Yeah.
easily miss it. I agree. Like this game, honestly, I like that it doesn't hold your hand a whole lot for most of the systems, but for some of these really core gameplay mechanics, it's easy to overlook them. Like you get those initial tutorials at the very beginning when you're fighting Mael back in the city, but beyond that, they pop up real sparingly, or they show up as like a hot tip on a loading screen, like, "Hey, don't forget when you filled up a Pictos level, set it as Illumina." Like, and if you don't know what that means, you're just like, "What the hell is Illumina?" So the
Hmm.
game is not really good about clarifying some of those kind of different systems. And if you miss it all and you just play the game as a straight turn-based, not knowing all the different mechanics, I can see how it'd also be a lot more brutal. You don't understand how all these different systems kind of help your character grow and build and try different combat styles. So I think a little more focus on teaching the user how to get those gameplay elements a little more structured would have been helpful. One thing I found a little interesting too is a lot of people are kind of touting this game as the newest game to figure out modern turn-based combat, because the big thing, a big quote from, I don't remember which Final Fantasy director it was, he's like, turn-based combat just doesn't work in a modern 3D game. That's why all the Final Fantasies are going real time. Do you remember that?
Yeah, kind of. I remember
Yeah, I think it
mentioning
might have
it
been the
during one of
director
our
of
previous
15 or
talks.
7. Yeah. And then people are like, well, look at Clair Obscur. They figured it out. I think maybe it's because other games are a little more niche, but although I really enjoyed the combat in this game, this is not the first iteration of this style of turn-based combat. I don't know how many people in the chat have played like Persona. This is very, very Persona.
Really? Okay.
From the way the skills are used, the weakness systems, the guns are from Persona. Um, I'm pretty sure Persona also had the real-time kind of quick times. Not nearly as often. This game is really big on the quick time events during combat executions. But other games have done that too. I think you had mentioned like what Paper Mario or Mario
Mario
RPG.
RPG did a lot of stuff
So
that reminded me of it.
I mean, fair. It's a bit of a hodgepodge, but I don't know if there's many unique elements in the combat that hasn't been done before. They've done it very well. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I guess the parrying aspect. I don't know how many turn-based games really do a lot of the parrying and dodging. That's probably the most unique aspect. But I don't know. I'm not trying to downplay because I still think this is an incredible combat system. But this is not the first game to figure out modern turn-based combat, which really is more of just a further pushback against the Final Fantasy director's quote that turn-based combat doesn't work nowadays. Plenty of games are using it
Hmm.
effectively, and I think more games should explore it and continue to grow it. Like Claire is finding a way to make a new, slightly different hodgepodge variation of it, adding a new, unique twist. I think more and more games could keep that kind of train of thought going. It doesn't have to all be real-time combat. Not that I don't like real-time combat
Yeah.
from time to time.
Well, that's why earlier I agreed with you. That's why I had said that it didn't feel like wholly revolutionary, but it did an amazing job of pulling influences from those three main things: Final Fantasy, Persona, and then Super Mario RPG. It did a really good job of like pulling the elements from that and just putting them together and being like, again, it's not a new outlook, but it's like it's refreshing because of how well it's done, but not because it's
Yeah.
like wholly new.
And partially is the visuals come into play here a lot. Like it's a very pretty combat sequence to watch, right? The camera is very fluid. It's used as an engaging way to help interact with timings. Like
Hmm.
there's a lot happening both with visual, audio cues. It's not like static turn based. It is engaging the whole time. So if your concern with turn based is that I feel like I'm just pressing a button and waiting, that is not this format of turn-based. Like you're very engaged throughout the whole thing between not just selecting your attack, but how well the attack hits, how you're going to time your defenses, things of that nature.
And I guess last part, now only last thing I care about talking with combat, but the only other thing I wanted to mention and like totally applaud, um, is I'm talking like insane amount of diversity in the enemy types and the bosses. Literally
Mm.
every enemy, almost every time, every 5-10 minutes, you're running into like a new enemy that has a different timing. It attacks differently. Each boss has again different timing. Utilizes the world around you in fighting you differently. Um, it's really insane. You have like the one mask guy, remember the mask level
Hmm.
where like he like changes different
Visage.
masks, visage, yeah, like changes his masks, does a bunch of things. That fight's freaking insane too, because you end up finding out that the real, and I guess it was obvious the real enemy was the first guy you meet, but like I don't know, that whole area was super unique, I thought. But you have people that like utilize masks. You have the lantern guy, chandelier, whatever the heck he
Hmm.
was. Even like the little enemies, the pawns, like they all have like super unique and different fighting techniques, and the Burgeons, and just there's so many different like it's insane the different
Yeah.
styles of fighting.
And towards the end, the way they combine it, like something that I liked too. I didn't feel like I ever got. I don't want to say not overwhelmed, but you notice that your combat encounters were always a 3-on-3, unless you like made your party lesser, or I guess you could have a solo enemy, but it was never more than 3 enemies. Like I've been in a lot of other games, even turn-based ones, where like it'll be you against like 8 other enemies will pop on screen, and there's really
Mm-hmm.
more of a war of attrition. This never went that route to make it almost feel like a battle by numbers. It was always here's different combinations of enemy types that are going to make this battle more engaging. Instead of just giving you all the 3 same type of enemy, we're now going to throw in this guy that you saw 2 levels ago that is going to bring back his hammer attack. Well, now you're still dealing with a new guy who does a status effect. So it really kind of played with all those chess pieces in different ways to give you unique encounters without just like making the numbers go up of enemies, which a lot of games I think fall back on. They just make it harder by throwing bigger enemies at you and more
Mm-hmm.
enemies. This game typically didn't go that route, at least not till the end.
How often did you fight the merchants for discounts?
Every time.
Every
Every
time.
time. They kicked all their butts. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, you got some of the best stuff. A lot of the best Pictos and weapons, you got from the merchants. And that's one thing I'll say to cover before we shift out of combat and maybe go to some other gameplay. The Pictos Lumina system, once again, I'm sure it's not completely new, and it can definitely get overwhelming. I don't know how many Pictos you ended up with towards the end and how much you were keeping up on leveling them up and assigning your Lumina points. But that is really where I think the meat of this combat system is. Like, did you spend a lot of time trying to figure out builds using the Pictos and then earning the Lumina and applying them?
No, but I've watched some people online mess with some of the insane builds, and I watched one guy, Maximilian Dude. He had one
Mm-hmm.
where he like did like 1 million damage or something in one hit. He knocked out a
Oh, you can do way more
he
than
did
that.
like
Yeah,
he knocked out like Sprong in like 1 or 2 hits or something. It was something insane, and it's like
yeah.
come on, what are y'all doing?
And that's kind of the good and the bad about this game. Is you can. It's a very interesting system that you can get a lot of the flexibility out of and make unique styles, but you can also break this game really, really easily. Towards the end, I was able to get my character. I wasn't even max level, I don't think. I killed the very last secret boss, the hardest guy in the game. One shot at him. I did like 50 million damage. And I didn't even go off a build. I just was putting Lumina and stuff together that I thought would boost my offensive, and just shredded. And that could be good or bad depending on your perspective. Some people are gonna think, well, that just trivializes the game, which fair enough. It can if you overpower yourself too early. I think
I don't
it'll
have a
make certain
problem because
battles
you got to
maybe a
play
little less
the
engaging.
you're like 20, 30, 40 hours into the game. I think it's fine for at that point for you to
Yeah,
if the game allows you to do that, I don't see a problem
and it
with it.
leaves it on the player. I think, and to be fair, I have this mentioned somewhere. I feel like this is a game that when they made decisions about that, like should a player be able to break the damage counter like that, I think they always went with what is the player going to find the most fun. Not
Hmm.
is the which one is the best or most balanced approach or what's going to do this and that from a
How
gameplay
how
perspective. They're just like
how
what's
dare
going
you
to be
say
fun. And I
So how dare you say a development studio listen and do what its fan base thinks is fun?
Well, I'm just saying, because like a lot of games would do very tedious things to make the game less fun, and they do it as ways to make the game. I don't know what always the rationale is, but even things like fall damage, right? You fall off a cliff and you take damage. This game, you could jump off a mountain and it doesn't care because fall damage isn't fun. So I feel like that was their mindset. I feel like they even said that somewhere along the way. I had a quote somewhere. I don't remember exactly. Oh yeah, he said it was I think in that interview with Skill Up, the director was like, yeah, this wasn't a game that was like designed by committee. Their goal was to make things enjoyable for the player. So they don't have an issue with you breaking the combat system. I think the only time they did was when there was something super egregious and they put out one patch that nerfed like one skill or something like that, just because it was too crazy. But for the most part, they're taking a hands-off approach. As long as you're enjoying the game and it's not messing with anybody's fun, they're letting you do it.
I would
So that's probably one reason too. I will say that you may have had a hard time with the difficulty if you weren't messing with the Pictos and Lumina.
I wasn't early on. That's part of the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, because your power level really scales based upon how you utilize those.
I didn't really.
I liked the system.
I'm a slower player. I didn't start understanding the Pictos and stuff until maybe 60-75% through the game, and then by then it's like you're already leveled up higher than most everything, so it doesn't really matter, But I just real quick gonna say, like, I would love to know why the main people left Ubisoft. Like, what was it? I don't know if they. Oh, I'm gonna watch that interview tomorrow at work, so that'll be.
Well, I was kind of mentioning it. I don't know all of it. I know the main game director, like he was working his way through, and he got thrown onto another project. And I think it wasn't like a creative role, or it was on a game that was really focused on it was a mobile game and it was focused on monetization. And he was just like, this is kind of stealing or sucking my soul away. And I think it was also the time where he had this idea for what Clair Obscur was. He started messing around with Unreal Engine. He's like, I can do some really cool stuff in here. It kind of sparked that in him. I think we also were hitting COVID. He was having more downtime to build out the project. And just kind of spiraled from there. I only think he took a couple of people that were actually at Ubisoft. Most of them were from all over, so it isn't like he took a large subset of Ubisoft's employee count or anything like that. It was like 2 or 3 people from Ubisoft, and then just other people across the board.
Would you point to that being further being further evidence of just because everyone has talked about how much Ubisoft has sucked for like a long time now. They just not sucked, but they've been putting out very repetitive, they're sticking to the same series. Obviously Assassin's Creed, and they had the trouble with what was the pirate game, Skull and Bones.
Skull and Bones. Maybe, I don't know. It's
but
is that a lack of
identifying and looking at? Is that an evidence of a lack of looking at and identifying talent? Like the fact that you have talented people doing things that they're not interested in
partially, and I was kind of saying this earlier, which is why I think this small team works so well. This game director was able to pick and choose based upon the skill sets he saw to build the team that he knew not only would get to do on the stuff that he wanted to do, but was also able to do what they wanted to do. The employees using the skill sets they had for something they cared about and could do well on. So I think that's true to a certain extent. It's hard though. I think when
it's hard to vocalize that as an employee, though. You know what I mean? Like if you work for
that, there's also a structure to it. Like you have a role, and if you got assigned to a role, you have to facilitate that role. Branching out of it is hard. He did, I think, discuss a little bit about why he didn't pitch this game to Ubisoft, and it wasn't that they wouldn't hear him, but I think he was like, I've seen this happen or play out through the studio, and it would have taken years just to even get the project off the ground, because Ubisoft is this massive entity. To get that moving would be very, very difficult. So I think that's more the issue. He knew it would be a very slow process. Not that he couldn't have really maybe made it happen at Ubisoft, and not that Ubisoft may not have taken the risk. I mean, a lot of people, yes, are really big on hitting on Ubisoft for releasing the same Far Cry every year and the same Assassin's Creed. But this is also a studio that does, apparently they're still funding Beyond Good and Evil 2 to be built, which is not a massively successful IP that I think is going to, make them billions and billions of dollars or anything like that. So now there's other issues with that, but I don't know. I'm not necessarily saying this is all Ubisoft is evil. This game couldn't have worked with that. It's a large company. And you could say that about just about any of these large companies, EA, Microsoft, or even PlayStation to a certain extent. It's a
Is
big machine that these
is
games can get lost in if not pitched the right way.
is Guillemot still in charge of Ubisoft? Is it still Yves Guillemot?
I think so. I know they've been getting different fundings. They had some new investors like buys different percentages of them. I have no idea how that's kind of staked out at this point, but I'm pretty sure his family is still technically the lead of the whole thing,
That guy
which that could be
sucks.
part of the issue too. Yeah.
Like he's made decent stuff, a couple decent games, but like I was also watching a little bit of early on with like because I don't know if you know, but he was like the head of Xbox I think for a while there, and or I think it
Oh,
was
he might have been.
Microsoft.
Yeah.
He was the head of Xbox or Microsoft, and at the time, he almost wasn't going to. I think he there was something he wanted to change about early on development with Gears of War, and I know Cliff Blazinski and the other guy that now works at the Diablo team, they were like
Mhm.
adamant that like, dude, no, we have like, I think Guillemot said the game was too bloody and there was too much violence or something, and it's like Eve, do you not
That's the whole
understand?
point.
That's the whole
Yeah.
point of this game that they're wanting to make. But that's what I mean about like, I'm not saying that that may be going on with Ubisoft in terms of like pointing to again, looking at talent and like giving talent the wiggle room to make what they want, but like they very much happen that same thing with Gears. It's like if you take away what they want the theme, what they have in their mind about how that game's going to be, then what is Gears?
Mhm.
I don't know.
And this is the tricky part, I think, about any larger businesses because they are trying to make the largest profit and reach as many players as possible. And when they look at things like that, that could be very abrasive and limit their demographic. Like a super gory game is going to knock out a large subset of like a kid player population. Those are, I think, some of the considerations that as an executive may make and not know when to kind of have the wiggle room there, which I think is why a game like this works so well. They don't have all that oversight. They just knew this is a game they want to make. They're not trying to cater to a certain demographic. They just want this to be this, and they believed in it. And to be fair, this is also not a game for everybody. This, I think, is a success story in a lot of ways. It's critically acclaimed. The people who have played it have loved it, who like this kind of game. There's also going to be millions of people that are going to hate this game because it is not that type of game that caters to the mass market in the same way that like a Call of Duty was.
It's not
So
an
I think that's where a lot of times these
Astrobot or
upper
whatever.
right. So you got to keep in mind that is a lot of times the perspective I think the executives are taking. They're trying to reach a large market, which to be fair, that's their role, that's their responsibility is to try to a certain extent, maximize their reach, maximize their profit. And yes, that can sound terrible, but it is a business. So I'm not trying to come down completely on that mindset. I think there's a balance there between knowing when you have a game that can reach that wide scale market like a Call of Duty, lean into it. And when you don't, know how you can then work with your resources to still produce games like this that are kind of
Mm.
unique, focused experiences to reach a very focused demographic.
And
But that's
I'm
neither
not,
here or there.
I'm not saying that there is a connection there. I'm suggesting. I'm throwing nuggets out there for you guys.
Who's to say? Cool, quick rapid fire things I'll throw out there for gameplay, and then we can move into the big part of the conversation, which I know will be
The most
story.
important
I
parts.
really, no, I really liked there was no quest log. Like most games, I wouldn't because
Oh, fair
I am
enough.
very much a checkbox person. Because I like to say, okay, well, I have these 10 quests I have to do. But with most games that are like that, at a certain point, it does feel a little monotonous. I can kind of turn my brain off and just complete a quest, which that can be good or bad. But I definitely didn't always feel as connected to all the quests. I just feel like, okay, checked off that one, checked off this one, moving down the box. This one, because there's no real quest log, not that they don't have side quests, but you have to really pay attention and you have to want to do the quest because you have to remember where do I even go for this quest or who do I talk to or why is it important to do it. So the level of immersion for the side quests I think was done a lot better because a lot of them stem from like relationship quests
Mm.
or just like little side quests. I missed a bunch in the prologue. I wasn't even aware of just little things I could have done. So yes, I think you can miss more without the quest log, but it definitely, I think, makes the experience more immersive and more meaningful for each one of the side quests. I think I
Yeah.
can remember just about every quest I did. Nothing felt like throwaway. Really, this game has very, very little bloat. I don't know if you noticed that. Like, there's a lot of stuff to do, But almost everything, as you said earlier, has meaning. There's a lore behind it, or it ties into something. Even all the optional areas you didn't get to, they all have a lot of purpose to different things that you experience throughout the story. Even if you didn't do them, you don't have to do them, but they definitely have a lot of meaning if you do. So,
Real quick in chat, earlier Skylar Twilight said, I agree, it did feel like Persona. And then Skylar Twilight said, Nuggets? Question mark, question mark?
what kind of nuggets?
Because I said I'm throwing
You
out
used to make
nuggets.
nuggets right about now.
Sweet and sour.
What else I want to mention? The party system just got. Oh, unless you did you want to mention anything about the quests?
No, I just wanted to mention that there was one thing that I noticed in my last stream for the game that I did. I already finished the game, but like I didn't. There's so many aspects of the game that I just didn't even realize were there. I didn't realize there was an overhead map when you're SKA out on the open world.
Oh yeah.
I didn't realize until my last stream. I'm like, oh, there's a map that actually shows you the places that you can go and whatnot, and you can just travel to them. There's a lot of aspects that I didn't even find all the little gestural babies. I still got to go do that.
Yeah, I did like that overall map. It was just enough extra detail to help, because I'll tell you, a lot of the islands, they look the same, the portals look the same. On the map, it won't show the name of the location until you visited it. So it was a way to be like, okay, I haven't gone to this place yet, and help you kind of remember what to do. I did want to mention a few things about the party system. I liked that you had that backup kind of system built in. So like if your main three guys died,
really cool.
your other members came. It felt like then the whole party could be used, because like a lot of games,
Who
you know,
were the three? Who
only really have.
Who are the three you mainly stuck with?
My three. So I switched around a little bit depending where I was in the game. Mael was
always in mine.
Lune was in it 90% of the time.
Agreed.
And then Gustav or Verso for a bit. I didn't really play CL at all. Minoko I played with only to collect all of his moves, because that was the only way to get them. Towards the end of the game, I kind of went with like a pseudo solo build with Mael, where it was just her on the main team. But what I did was I added Minoko and CL to basically spawn and then immediately die and explode. That way they do damage, and then I'd be back to just Mael on the team, and she does more damage alone. So that I could kill everybody. And then if something happened, then I'd have Verso and Lune as my kind of backups. But I did like it because everybody in your team, depending how a battle played out, could be called upon and could be used. Whereas a lot of RPGs, like, you could completely exclude a handful of characters and never touch them. Like, how many characters in Mass Effect did you just never use?
There's quite a few. I never used Morden. There's a bunch of them. I never used Morden, and I always normally chose like
which is fine to have the options.
Garrus or somebody.
Yeah, and we all have our reasons why we choose it, but I think it's easy to get them stuck and shoehorned into, well, these are my party members all the time for the entire game and never experience the other one. So the fact this game kind of has this backup system in there, so you're kind of forced to use them at some point if things go awry, I thought was nice. I also like that they all leveled up, not necessarily to the same level, but even if I never played a CL towards the end of the game, they pretty much kept her up. Like, she was still within like 3 or 4 levels of my main crew, unless I really completely ignored her, which I think that was nice to always make the other party members an option for you if you really wanted to switch quickly.
Yeah. Gosh, is there anything else? I really can't think about. What'd you think about the hub, or the
open world map?
No, you're a little
the camp?
The camp, yeah. Do we talk about the camp at all? There's not really much there.
No,
that's mainly your avenue.
Underutilized.
That's mainly your avenue to do the dialogue options and to grow your relationship with everybody.
That's really all it is. Yeah, and over time there actually becomes less to do in the camp. Like, as you get to the story, one of the characters in the camp disappears and the roles change, which I'm sure what I'm talking about. And then like the gestrels, if you do find all the lost ones, and that's kind of a wasted area, and you're really just left in that main little section. So there could have been more there, but it was fine as a place to, talk with everybody and kind of go from there.
Yeah, it felt like mainly your only place to just check out the soundtrack, and I don't know, there were a bunch. I finished like half of the. At the end, when you max out the relationship with everyone, there would be like an additional cutscene or additional quest that happens. I did like half of those. I need to go back and finish the rest of those.
Yeah, some of those are good. Some of them are a little quick, but they're worth doing.
No. Okay, sorry. That's the only thing I could think of.
Sure, that's good. Well, we hit, I think, a lot on the
Or did
gameplay
we?
stuff. I'm sure there's more.
Real quick, I don't need to spend a lot of time. I really did not like the platforming. I just wanted to mention a little bit on the platforming and some of the beach stuff that was going on. I did not like the little mini games that were going on there. I hated the one where you were knocking the
Yeah.
stuff back at the enemies. That one was annoying. The climbing the incredible tower. I was getting
Mhm.
incredibly frustrated. What the first one
Well,
was?
it was supposed to be though. I mean, the tower was
Yeah.
a spoof off that one game, Only Up or whatever it was, which was supposed to be a
Uh,
terrible climbing simulator.
oh, I didn't think about it.
I
I
don't know.
mean,
I don't
it could be. It
disagree.
could have been just the gestrels effing with you. Maybe that was the whole point. Is it's just the gestrels are annoying. I guess
That's
maybe.
part of it. I didn't mind all of them. Like the tower climb, I actually didn't find that bad. I think I fell off it maybe one time, going all the way
Really?
up.
Took me like half an hour to beat
Yeah,
that crap. I didn't like it.
no, I didn't find it that bad. I think the hardest one for me,
The bounce
which one?
back
'Cause there's like
game.
five of them.
There's three of them. There's
The
the
volleyball. Volleyball wasn't that bad once you got the timings.
volleyball
I
was
didn't have an
the
issue with many of them.
volleyball was the last one. Those three. There's volleyball. Two was the tower.
No, there's more. There's five
There's
if you
five.
find them all.
I thought they were all at the same, or maybe
There.
they're different places.
No, there's a few other ones
Oh,
that
okay.
you probably didn't come across
I
yet.
did
I
the
think
log one. There's a log
there's
one where
four or
you
five.
you run across logs on the water, and then you. That's like the very first one, I think.
There's the logs. There's the volleyball. There's the big tower. There's one where you climb just a single wall with orbs falling. That's the last one. There's a
Mm,
fourth one I'm forgetting. Oh man,
I thought I
I don't
saw
know. There's like
one.
four or five of them.
Huh. Interesting. I need to
Oh,
go
there's at least one
look
you're
for.
missing. I mean, I agree in general that the platforming, when they really force you to do it, there was one picto at the very end of the game that I had to just hop between three platforms to get to. But my God, the very last one, every time the character would roll off the edge and I couldn't stop her, and I spent 30 minutes just trying to jump on three platforms. So the platforming can be very, very frustrating depending what they're wanting you to do and why you're trying to do it. It's definitely not. It wasn't the focus. It's not a platformer. They just thought it
Yeah,
was
it's not.
a funny enough way for you to access different levels of the game. Fair enough. But I think the big tower was supposed to be a callback to that Only Up game, which
Hmm.
by nature was supposed to be frustrating, which that's my take on it.
All right, so got a couple. Really love the music in the game. Yeah, I remember it took you quite some time to get up there, Chaz and Skylar. Yeah, that was not a fun time. There's five. Yeah, apparently Phoenix says. Hey, Veronica Rose just joined.
Four or
Veronica,
five, yeah.
yeah. Says sorry I took a nap. I'm late, but hello. Welcome, Veronica. Good to have you.
Bonjour, mon ami.
Gosh, I mean, it's really insane just how many aspects of the gameplay there is.
Yeah, and there's stuff we're not
We
really
don't have
even
to touch on
talking about.
everything. I'm interested in getting right into the story. That's where I want to get to.
Yeah. All right, we can do that.
Do we want to
So
touch on? Do we want to go the opposite from the? Do we want to go straight to the ending, or do you want to start from the beginning?
I feel like you have to start at the beginning for this
Okay.
one. I mean,
Okay.
I know your chat's seen you play the game, but working backwards on this, I think was hard because it recontextualizes even the discussion. Like the way you experience this game in order of the story beats, I think matters because as you were saying, when you go back and you replay this game, I imagine you're going to feel very differently about a lot of things that happen because now you know where this whole thing's going. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say start at the beginning unless you're really opposed to it.
No, beginning's fine.
Alrighty.
So did you,
So
from the very beginning, uh, did you think that everything that was happening, or did you think it was like some weird alternate universe, made up world kind of going on?
when
Because
you
I,
say like not our world, or what do you think? Or do you mean like
yes,
nothing's real?
that I am from the very beginning. That was my thought, was that everything was not real and not happening. I didn't understand why.
Really?
But that was my thought at first. I never once
I did
thought that.
not think that.
Really, you thought everything was real from the beginning, or it was like a real world?
Yeah. I know that's kind of a huge story spoiler for everybody. Well, I guess we're spoiling anyway. But no, I went into this pretty earnestly thinking what I'm seeing is, what I'm seeing, and man, this almost jumps to where I have to talk about why I don't like it. I guess the reason I felt that way is because how much this game really tries to tie you to the characters to make them feel very real, very fleshed out. So, I mean, that's kind of the point, I assume, but it did its job then. I definitely was, feeling Gustav's kind of motivation and the stuff happening with Sophie at the very beginning.
I will say, I thought they were
when I came into this game,
I just thought they were in a bubble. I thought there was some weird, like, everyone's trapped in a magic bubble or something. Because if you looked up, you could see, like, from the beginning, a dome. So I don't know. I thought it was like a bubble or something. I don't know.
But you knew it wasn't real, or you thought it was just like a sectioned off area? Because that's a very, very different context based on how this story goes. If you knew they weren't real right off the beginning, I mean, I
don't want to say new, but I thought that was the case. At first, that was my very first thought was, I don't think any of this is happening. But I don't know. I'm easily like sucked in to a story, so I thought that at first, and then it went out of my head because I like to just kind of take in the story with what's happening.
I'll tell you,
in chat, just Ristiki says, "LMAO, love the thumbnail, Chaz." Hey, thank you. I cooked that one up very quickly. Love the fit Phoenix and just tons of howdies.
Thank you. I will say maybe one reason I didn't go that route is I generally hate stories that go that route where all this really important stuff's happening and then none of it's real. And I will hold my comments on that till we get to that point. But I want to be invested in the game and the story that's being played out. And I will say once again, I had no real context on what the Paintress was or anything like that or what was going on. I mean, definitely I think as you play through it very quickly in the first hour or so, you realize kind of what's happening. But one of the best openings I've seen in a game, like it's up there with like Mass Effect 2 for me for the most part. Like as far as like
dude, the emotion when
when
his girlfriend gets Thanos, it's like oh man.
And I think the hook is really intriguing. Like once again, I already said the environment alone kind of set up my whole like what's happening, why does the world look this way, and then to add each little aspect of it. Why are people just floofing away at a certain age? What's going on with these expeditions? Why has nobody come back? There's a lot of whys, and the game is really good about not dumping a lot of exposition on you at the very beginning. It lets you slowly kind of figure out what's going on based upon what you're seeing, who you're talking to. This game, I don't think beyond like the journal logs ever just like stops and then explains the story to you for more than a minute or two. Arguably, you could say at the very end, some of the bigger reveals, but even then they're handled, I think, pretty subtly to a certain extent. So no big exposition jumps. The game just slowly kind of reveals itself to you, and it makes that first hour up until you land on the continent really, I think, intriguing. So great opening, the first act. Anything else you want to mention first act related before we get kind of the end of the first act? I think with a lot of it I've talked about, like the shift in tone once you land on the continent, stuff like that. But as far as like general story and setup, game starts out like with a great hand.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything to add. I loved the opening from the very onset when it kind of starts you off in that tower, and like immediately you're like looking over the water, kind of looking at the Paintress, and I just like. I love just the vibes.
It's such a striking game.
I love the vibes throughout the game where you're like, you're constantly hating the Paintress, but then you're also just like mystified where you're just like, what is going on? Like I love that feeling. I love that feeling throughout the game where you're just like, it keeps you coming back. You're just like, I gotta know why she's killing everybody. What who put something in her eggs in the morning? I gotta know.
Yeah, no, the hook is really strong in this game, which is why I said if they in the marketing they really sold the fact that who the Paintress was, like as far as what she's doing, I almost feel like that undersells the game a little bit. Like I think you're best not knowing one thing about this game.
Well, again, that's why
I letting that hook hit you as soon as you can.
I tried not to spoil anything when I was talking to you about it because I feel like this is like you were saying. This is a game where it's just like, I don't know. I love trying. I definitely think it's
the way to play out in the moment,
and it's fun to try and figure out throughout. Like I constantly was coming up with my own theories of like, I don't think this is real, or maybe it could be real, but maybe the Paintress. Who's the Paintress? Is it an actual person? Is it a? Well, because I thought the Paintress. My entire thought at the beginning was that the Paintress wasn't an actual person. I thought the entire time the Paintress was like some figment of I'm gonna say not imagination, but I thought it was like Yeah, I mean, I guess imagination to an extent. Um, I guess I early on I was probably pretty close to what was actually happening, but I didn't think any of
Mhm.
that was actually the case. But
That's fair. But yeah, if anybody, I know everybody in this chat has already seen you play it, but anybody watching this retrospectively, if you haven't played the game, don't or try your best to ignore or avoid any big story spoilers at the very beginning. Like it's best played in the moment. Like even though you very clearly know what's about to come in a vague sense, like as soon as you meet Sophie, you're like, yeah, this chick's dead. You know something's gonna happen, but the how and the why and what plays out, and then your role as far as following up after she dies, like all that's handled really, really well as the hook. So,
and and just to
great
build
start.
upon what you just said, I definitely think that very much is the case here. Where like even though maybe early on I had a couple theories that like were similar to what was happening, that's really not the point of the game. We'll talk about it at the end, but like that's not the point. The point of the whole game is like why. So it's like it's not that you
Hmm.
understand, you know what's happening. It's the why is it happening, which is super interesting and cool. But go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. No, agreed. So most of Act One though is just kind of setting up, your party, at least the core of your party, getting Lune, Mael,
What do you think about Renoir?
Sael
Which is
at the very beginning.
very beginning, yeah, the first. Who did you think? I thought he was Gustav for most of the game. I thought he was
See,
Gustav.
that's more where my mind was going, was some kind of time
Yeah.
thing
Mm-hmm.
happening. Especially because like the Verso character, without going too far, I didn't know who Verso was, but there's a lot of visual similarities between Gustav and even Verso and Renoir. I'm wondering if somehow we're
I thought they
seeing
were all the same
Gustav like different
person.
points in his life.
I thought they were all
Yeah,
the same person throughout the entire game. Like you said, I thought it was a time thing where Gustav is young, Renoir is him adult. I thought Renoir was just trying to
Verso
prevent.
somewhere in between.
I thought Renoir's goal with killing him was to keep him from doing something that he does later in the
Hmm.
future or something,
He
or
had
that he was.
learned how terrible
Yeah.
something was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
Yeah, that's kind of where my narrative leads were going initially. I mean, obviously, if you know the game, very, very wrong, unfortunately. But that's where I went. I mean, I thought the opening was fine enough. I mean, they don't really give a whole lot about Renoir right off the bat. He does maybe have that, evil villainy trope, which I don't know. Maybe they could have held off on. I know his whole background and your feelings towards him change a lot throughout the game, but I don't know. It did feel a little tropey right there off the
Ren,
beat. Just
Ren
evil, black coated guy slaughtering everybody.
Renoir does feel like the one character in the narrative that, because a lot of times there's a lot of tropes, like you were saying, with a lot of stories where it's like, come on, why don't you just tell them this? Why is it such a big problem? If you would just tell people, it wouldn't be an issue. Renoir feels like the one character in the story where it's like, just tell everyone what's happening. Like,
Verso to an
it's,
extent too.
yeah.
To be fair,
Well, Verso it
a
makes more
lot of
sense.
the
Verso makes more sense for him to be a little cagey. Renoir, it's like, dude, just explain. You know what I mean? I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. I think there's some journals that kind of elaborate on that. Like when Verso and Renoir used to kind of like be teaming up together, they were trying to tell at the beginning, or some things that happened and it caused some other conflicts. So it's not they
Oh,
hadn't in the past,
I didn't
but you
think
have to
about it.
think these
They've been
guys have
through
now
this
been doing this
multiple.
for like 67 years.
Yeah. Hmm. So they've seen like
So at
every
this point,
narrative path that could happen. Okay.
exactly. So they're just kind of playing it out now for their past experiences. But yeah, most of the story then, just except for Act One, is getting your party together. CL, I'll tell you, it took me a while to. I mean, she was a fine enough character. I think I liked her more towards the end if you spend time really talking to her at the camp.
Her
But
husband died, right?
initially,
Was she the one with the husband?
her husband died in an accident. She miscarried trying to kill herself. Like it's a dark story. Everybody's got a dark story in
Yeah.
this whole thing. But I mean, she was an interesting character. You don't get a whole lot of that early on. She's definitely cagier.
I
So
I didn't notice, but no. Okay, I was gonna say no. You did get backstory. I was gonna say I didn't. Early on, you don't really get a lot of backstory for Mael, but I do think you do get a. You just know she was adopted by parents and whatnot, but that's about it that you all know. Adopted
yeah.
by them and then sort of
Um,
semi-adopted by Gustav and whatnot.
you get introduced to probably the best character in the whole game, Esquier. That's my boy right there.
Yeah, I love SKA. Were we serious? Are
Yeah,
you
a little
serious
more
about
woo, a
wanting
little
to
more wee. Yeah.
Possibly MegaCon.
Oh, I don't know. That's right around the time we're thinking about Japan, so that might be a little hard to swing.
Mm,
But that'd be fun cosplay. You'd be a good SKA.
I
I might be a
would
mime. I don't know.
I would love to. That would be super. We should or we could either do individuals or we could all go as the baguette character. All of us just wear the
Ah,
baguette.
I got the beret already. It'd be easy to do.
We
All
get baguettes attached to our backs, get the costumes. I think that would be almost funnier, but more funnier.
Be a lot easier. Um, all right, so I don't know how many little beats you want to hit in Act One, because a lot of it's just kind of moving through, getting to the next step of the story. The
We
big
could just
thing that happens
go.
at the end of Act One
Yep,
is
go
the
straight there.
Gustav incident.
Yep.
Did you see it coming?
Did I see it coming? I did not. I actually did not see it coming. I actually will say, like, one of my favorite, real quick, couple things in chat. Yes, love the vibes in the game, said Reese. Wondering if she's good or not, talking about the Paintress. I did start to play the game last week. It's been very enjoyable, said Reese. I thought they were the same person as well. That or a twin brother. I did get confused. Baguette Gang from Reese in chat. Um,
Baguettes in chat. Love it.
Baguettes in chat. um, I don't know. I saw it coming. I just I would say like one thing I loved is I went to YouTube and watched compilations of other people
Mhm.
experiencing the twist at the end of Act One, and that was pretty fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
I had a good time. It was a little overly dramatic, and to an extent, but other than that, I didn't have a problem really with it. I was kind of just again, I was hoping more that like I don't know. At that time, did Mael know anything about herself yet? Right, she didn't, so she couldn't do anything.
No, I think she had like a flashback or two, but she wasn't capable of painting or anything like that
Okay,
at that point.
all right. I don't. I didn't see it coming. I thought it was enjoyable. I thought it was an interesting twist. I think what's more interesting is after that. I thought Mael was going to become. Well, I guess she technically is the main. She's a main character, but yeah, I didn't expect that someone would
Taking
replace.
control of Verso.
Yeah, I didn't think someone
Yeah,
would just downright replace him. I thought he would just be x'd out. But
gone.
what did
Yeah.
you think?
I mean, I always love a good character death when done well. I think it definitely can shift the stakes, and I think killing Gustav was a big gut punch. I did kind of feel it was coming. I didn't know 100% like it wasn't spoiled, but I had seen little gameplay snippets with Verso, and there was a very clear absence of Gustav, and I'm like, something's happening to Gustav. Either he's gonna run off, or he's gonna die, or who knows what's gonna happen. But Gustav was not gonna be with your party the entire time. So when
I,
we
I
got to that Lamp Master part, I'm like, ooh, this looks not so good for him.
the one thing I will say that I should have seen it coming is the the overall just like environment and the theme kind of changes leading up to him when you're like leading up to the
Hmm.
lamp guy, like everything kind of gets there's like a very dark shade of like blue that kind of comes over the entire area.
Hmm.
It's very kind of it gets kind of dark. There's no more light, kind of. It feels just kind of like the sun's kind of gone, but it's still light out, and I
Yeah.
don't know, the vibe of the whole world kind of changes just before that, and it's very dour.
I'm really, for me, as I mentioned earlier, I'm kind of a dour person. I was kind of glad the game got back to that tone because it had been pretty, for lack of better phrasing, happy-go-lucky for a little while. Like once you got your party together, you got CL, you went through the
Hmm.
gestrels, you're having fun with all of them. Like the stakes and the tension are really kind of got laxed. So I think this was kind of important to shift things again. And honestly, I mean, not saying the tone doesn't still bounce around a little bit, but I think it kind of reset that switch and reminded, okay, this is still kind of a big deal. It kind of reset the motivation for the characters again. And it also, I think, recontextualized some stuff. I mean, Verso coming in, of course, and kind of his integration into it really changes the dynamic of the entire party and their story and moving on from there. But I know I liked it. I want to say I'm glad they killed him off because I do like Gustav as a character, but I do think it was an important decision to make, and I think it sold the story well. So
And
yeah, I thought it was a good twist.
leading up to it, that lantern battle was interesting because that was like your first experience with a like multi-stepped layered battle where you
Hmm.
fight the person multiple times. And I don't know, I thought that was pretty interesting how leading up to that. You really should have expected something to happen after that because again, that battle
Yeah.
is so different. I don't know, and everything
Yeah.
seems
I
too
do like that the
happy.
game.
Mile is a little too like everyone's a little too talkative and happy right before the thing happens. So again, you should kind of.
Mhm.
It's like everyone's like, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I'm glad this had that switch again because everybody was getting
hmm
too comfortable. Maybe that was kind of the point too. Is like they were getting some progress, they were enjoying the world and kind of what they were doing. So this needed to kind of reset those stakes for them,
Renmar
which
was like,
I think worked.
you stop that over there.
Yeah. All right, so that's Act One in a nutshell, and we left out a lot, but those are like the big highlights. I mean, Act One's really about the beginning and the end.
hmm
Act Two. So
Can
this is
I
really getting to know Verso. Oh, go ahead.
can I just ask you overall your thoughts on the three act narrative of style that they were kind of going for? What did you think of how they handled like if it feels like three different stories wrapped up into one, in my opinion.
Um, I mean, I don't feel like it's three different stories. Maybe because I'm used to like three act structures for like plays and things of that nature. I mean, I liked it. I like the way it played out. Um, it helps set a little bit of structure to a story because I feel like a lot of I mean, any story can, but games in particular can meander a lot when they don't have very clear kind of like framings on what a section of the game should be. Like Final Fantasy, Seven, the reboots for me, those
hmm
games felt like they went on forever because they didn't have like real clear kind of part of it because they're milking that game for all it's worth right now and stretching things out way beyond what they should. But that game felt like a slog. I think having the acts and having them kind of focused and a structure to them helps the pacing of the game a little bit and kind of your expectation for the next act as far as like what it's going to accomplish, the size of these. That's like just a story writing trope,
mm
or I should say structural component, which I like. I didn't feel like there were separate stories though. I mean, I definitely felt like they were just continuations and reveals that help recontextualize the prior
Or
acts,
maybe
but
it.
they were never like completely tangential to me.
Yeah, maybe I didn't, but I mean, like I got strong like season of a TV show vibes when I was playing it. Like
Sure,
I definitely felt like at the end of
I can
like
see
each
that.
act, I was like, oh, there's season one. I mean, I guess act one, act two, whatever. But like, yeah, it definitely felt like I just wrapped
I
up a
like a
season
play.
of a TV show, and I just like needed to like kind of relax afterwards. No, I'll play. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, no, I like the structure, maybe for slightly different reasons than you did, but I think it was a nice way to frame it and keep the narrative focused. So narrative or not narrative, I'm sorry. Act two is really all about Verso. How did you feel about Verso when you kind of entered your party? Kind of who that character was, because now he's kind of your. I mean, he's not really. You only really have direct control of him in the camp. Everywhere else, you can kind of play as whoever you want, but he's
hmm
kind of your avatar now into the game. I think that's what it wants you to feel like. How'd you feel about that?
I guess initially I just wanted to congratulate Ben Starr again. I mean, that dude does like the
Mm,
coolest RPG freaking British whatever his voice is supposed to be. I know you didn't play Final Fantasy 16, but he was the main character in 16. He played
yep.
Clive, and like he does such a great job. I mean, he basically here is Clive, but except less angry. But I don't know. I just wanted to initially say yeah, he did a great job. Granted, we mentioned it before. All the voice actors were top notch here, and
Top
everyone.
notch. Yep.
Yeah. Um, to an extent, there were I definitely didn't like Clive. I definitely didn't like Verso as much. Yeah, I definitely didn't like Verso as much. I didn't like Verso until the end. I'll just say that because the ending really puts into context a lot of the stuff. Not just
Yeah,
the
you don't get to
ending
know who Verso is until the end.
until
Yeah.
the end and until like even through a lot of the moments with his dad, like the fights and stuff, you really don't even they
Hmm.
still don't even let you in exactly on what's happening. You get tidbits, but yeah, you don't really get an understanding of it. So that's why I was saying is like he didn't come off to me as entertaining as like Gustav, who like you were saying, Gustav was more hot and cold. Like he was sad and depressed, or he was lively and having fun with Mael and playing games with
Well, he was
SDA.
relatable too. Like
Yeah.
Gustav felt like, a normal person. Like when he would go in, he would be idealistic, and then he'd get into the middle of the first battle and realize, crap, everything's going to hell in a handbasket. I'm gonna end this right here and now for myself. And then he shifts back and forth. Like you can relate to all his emotions bouncing around. How he's sometimes decisive, but sometimes he's still a little unsure of himself. Verso's very different, and of course he's coming through basically lying through his teeth for most of that act, which like it's not really a secret that he's holding secrets, and I think it makes it weird to take on. I mean, initially I did not like playing with him just because I generally like to feel like I'm connecting to my avatar, but you have to realize that's not what this game is trying to do. This is not your avatar. This is a character in this story, so having to really separate yourself from that, I think, is important. I think one thing I didn't love from a narrative standpoint is just how trusting the rest of the expedition was to Verso just joining their gang. There was like no downtime between Gustav being done for and then Verso showing up and be like, hey, sorry about your guy.
Again,
come with me.
Not to touch on spoilers, but there is an aspect of our gang that it's so hard to because this touches to the ending. I guess we can touch on spoilers, right? I mean, how much of our gang is, I mean, nothing is within their control. Like, are they actually doing things that are up to them? So, like, critiques of, like, Gustav and stuff, like, I mean, is he doing something? Is he doing anything that he wants to do? Or is it all predestined? Is it predetermined? You know what I mean?
Does he have it's predestined. They all have, agency and their own, independent willpower over what they're doing. When they paint the characters, and we can come back with what that means in a bit, you're creating them. You're not creating their pathways as far as what they're going to do in every action. And this is a big conversation to get into as far as what the painted people are, and how you should view them. But to my understanding, it wasn't like once they were created, their whole lives were created for them. I'm assuming that's not the feeling I got from it, unless they're going with a very different kind of theologic perspective. But I don't feel like that was the case, that they were just following certain steps.
I just question how much of that is the case, because when you get to the ending, you see characters doing things that they don't want to do. So it's like, how much I don't know. Well, I guess that,
I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say
that depends, I guess, on what you decide at the end.
Yeah, the ending can go different ways. I'm not saying there's none of that taking part here, as so there is, I think, a little bit of interpretation to be had. I do feel like everybody, at least at this point, you feel like
everyone had free will, basically. Okay.
Right. And I think that's still technically true for the majority of the game, at least as far as the context. I can kind of correlate things.
Because obviously, Verso,
if I'm going with that,
obviously the couple characters we know have free will. So, but it's the rest of the group that it's like,
right.
I don't know. I was just throwing out a hypothetical.
I'm going to assume that they all do, and we can argue that point here in a bit. And if you go with that assumption, at least that's the point I definitely felt at that point in the game. They were just really, really trusting of Verso. And granted, he came across as the quote-unquote nice guy that came in and helped out, saved them from Winoir, picked up Gustav's arm.
But that's why I was throwing it out there, because I was just combating your, like, oh, they're being trustworthy. And I'm like, do they have a choice?
That's fair.
And how?
Yeah, I think they do, personally. But
okay. Well, that's what I like. I love games that make you, like, well, you don't know. Like, it's however you view things that are happening. I don't know. That's why I love stuff like Returnal and whatnot. Like, just great storytelling. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, Soma.
Cool stories that have some layers to them.
Stuff like Soma.
Returnal. I have in my notes. I want to come back to discussing that one.
All right, sorry, go ahead.
But no, you're fine. So anyway, that was Verso. He comes in. He kind of leads you to the next few steps of the narrative as far as what you had to go through the duelist. I know you had to go through that portion.
Oh, that was such a cool fight.
Making way to Old Lumiere.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool moments that happen through there. I'm not saying we have to hit on all of those, but you're slowly kind of figuring out who Verso kind of is. Like, he's not revealing everything to you, so it's a lot of back and forth, and you get pieces.
Real quick, finding
out that Renoir is his father.
What'd you think of the blood-soaked area where the duelist was? Pretty cool, huh?
It was intense. I loved it.
And that's another thing is like looking back, it's like, oh, was it blood? Is it paint? I don't know. There's just so many artsy fartsy. Sorry. Learn about the father angle, and then learning about the eventually. I mean, you do kind of learn that what is her name? Was Alicia? Alicia was his sister, and
So this, just to kind of before we jump in just a little. So this whole act basically ends, I would say, early for a lot of people because you get to the painters at the end of Act 2. Like you have the Axon stuff. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to hit on with the Axons because there's a lot of lore there if you really wanted to get into them.
There was only two, right? There was the dancer lady, and then there was the.
So there's technically four.
Oh, there's more. Is it
there's only two you fight. Well, there's only two you fight in the main story.
Paintress is
one. The third
one.
one is part of a leash. No, Paintress is not an Axon.
Oh, okay.
No. What's this? The two you fight in the main story. Alicia has one in her relationship side quest. The tower you're climbing up, the big creature inside. So there's an Axon there, and then there's the one who's actually dead in Old Lumiere.
Okay.
Now they all represent very particular people. I don't know if you caught that or
I didn't know
what they mean.
I didn't even know there were other ones. I only knew the two Axons. I didn't do a lot of the side questing.
Let's do this. The big reveal kind of happens at the end of Act 2. I think that then recontextualizes kind of everything. The Axons, your understanding of the characters and why they're there, etc. So
you also learn about
the Paintress.
You learn about the mansion, what happened with the mansion and what's going on there with Alicia and Verso and everything.
Yeah. So I won't do a beat by beat, but just to kind of hit main things, I want to get your feelings on it. So you get to the Paintress. You can't fight the big Paintress. You have to go inside and basically go through the greatest hits of the whole game to kind of learn backstory. But then you do end up killing the Paintress. Like that is still your goal that you accomplish because you think by doing so you're ending the gamage and although there's a little bit of subtlety that's not going to happen. For the most part, your characters think that's right.
And there's like sorry, I interrupted you. I was going to say it's a very lukewarm win against the Paintress too for like half of the people. Like half of the people like super stoked, but there's definitely a sense of like, some people know something that they're not letting on about. More particular, it seems like Mael and Verso are the ones where it's like there's something off about them. Like everyone else is just like, yay, we won. We're victorious,
Yeah, I think that's part of it. It is bittersweet because based upon everything they've been leading up to, that by killing the Paintress, it is not going to play out the way that everybody's hoped. So you kill her, yay, you get back to Lumiere. I will say, I found that moment really weird to me. Like when they got to Lumiere and everybody's like,
everyone's
yay,
celebrating.
and there's the fireworks going off. But most people did not seem that excited. I don't know if that's just maybe the way they were animated or how that was set up. But even like you saw Gustav's sister, she's like, yay. I mean, I know Gustav just died. Maybe that's hitting her hard. But even like people just standing in the docks, they're like, oh, cool, the expedition's back. Good job, guys. I feel like that would be a much bigger moment that you just major weight's been lifted off your shoulder. You're not going to die in the next year. Like, I don't know. I feel like that got undersold a little bit from the Lumiereans' perspective, but I don't know, that could be context. Yeah, I don't know if that's right or not. So yeah, you find out that basically the Paintress was not the main villain. She was kind of keeping everybody alive as long as she could, and really it was Renoir, the real Renoir, who was actually trying to wipe everything out to get the Paintress out, which was his wife, etc., etc. I don't know if you want to go through all the details. I know your chat's seen this.
What's the reason why Renoir wants to end everything there? Do you want to explain that, or that kind of explains the end of the game too? So essentially, Renoir is he wants to like end this imaginary place that what his wife has essentially cooked up, or his wife and the wife in the real world. So essentially, in the real world, there's the manor.
You have to go back so far to explain this right.
Essentially,
we'll start with this. There's a family in the real world called the Desanges, or Desanges. I can't say. I'm not French. I look very French. It is Renoir, the father, his wife Aline. His wife Aline, and then they have 3 kids. They have Verso. Clair is the oldest. Then they have Verso and Alicia. So what happens at some point, there's a conflict. There's a whole actually outside conflict between different factions, the whole writer painter thing, which they don't really go into too much. But basically something happens. Mael gets burned horribly in a house fire because Verso tries to save her.
And there
Verso
is a sense
dies
of
in the
like
fire.
there is like a world of magic kind of going on, right? Where like there is like a
so
sense
this
that,
family
abilities or whatnot.
has a power. They're called painters, and they can paint realities, basically. They can go to a canvas, make an entire world, and not just create it, but then go inside of it. It's like a fancy VR headset, essentially. They make the world, and they can hop in and interact with the world. So these kids and this whole family have used this power for years. Verso painted the world we're in, essentially, at least most of it, not all of it. He's the one who came up with the
Okay, I didn't know that.
gestuals.
I knew it was. I thought it was the mother
He
that kind of
made-
created everything, or the mother was just
He
controlling
made-
it afterwards.
So he made kind of the fantastical aspect of it. So the gestuals, the what else? Mostly the gestuals.
The weird
That's
monsters,
really the
like
only life form there. He did not make those.
Was it the sister?
He
The
made
older sister
really the
made
gestuals.
those.
Yeah, but not till much later. Basically, him and his sister would use this as kind of a playground growing up. It's Verso's canvas. He made the kind of base of it, and then Clay would come and add some stuff to it, and they kind of grew up and had adventures as they kind of got older. Eventually, they both kind of took a step back from it because they got older, did other things. Verso wanted to be a musician. Clay, I don't know, it seems like she's doing some social, political something going on.
Yeah, she's like super
but eventually,
like, political, like you were saying. I remember she was talking about how like the socio.
There's
like
another magical faction going on, the Riders, and there's a conflict between the Painters, which is this family, and the Riders. We don't know any details about it. The story or the game does not go into details, but that conflict is what spurs the fire at the Desange's house, which ends up killing Verso, maiming Mael, and really kind of setting this whole family on this downward spiral. Aline is horribly grieved over the loss of her son. So the only way she can feel like she can connect with them, I guess when you do your paintings, at least to a certain point, part of your soul gets kind of attached to it. So there is part of Verso's soul living in the canvas he created, which is really the world that we've been playing in the whole time. So then Aline, to escape her grief, goes into this world, recreates her entire family.
Yeah.
She recreates a new version of Verso. That's the Verso we play with in the game. It's not the original Verso. She actually recreates another Clea, which you don't see unless you do side content. She recreates Renoir. That's the one you fight for most of the game. And she doesn't... Oh, no, she does recreate Alicia, too. But she blames Alicia for the fire, hence why she's, like, white and maimed in the game. Like, she's not real kind to her youngest daughter. So she spends time in here grieving. She also creates the world of Lumiere because she wants to add a touch of the real world to it so her family can live in it. They can interact. So all of go ahead.
Was there a sense that that Verso was like the favorite child? I kind of was getting that vibe where like
probably from the mother.
From the mother
son vibes.
Yeah, I was kind of getting
mothers always love their baby boy kind of thing.
Yeah, because I was kind of getting that like Alicia was kind of like there's a lot of animosity.
She was the third kid. You know, she was a mistake. They're like, oh crap, we got another kid. I'm sorry, that's terrible.
No,
you're a third child. My apologies.
He's got white hair.
But anyway,
disown.
The mother recreates Lumiere, which is basically Paris, recreates it in this canvas, so there can be a real world to this fantasy world that she can interact with her family and all that kind of stuff. I guess she spends too long in there. Like the timing is different. How long your body's outside the canvas is different. It's much longer inside the canvas. But apparently you spend too much time in there and it's bad for you. So the husband, the original Renoir, it wants to save his wife because his wife is basically trapped in this painting, refuses to come out because she's lost in her grief. So he goes in there to pull her out, and they both get stuck there. They basically have their own little war, and that's what kicks off everything in the game.
And he doesn't think
causes this fracture.
He doesn't think it's healthy for them to have such a strong attachment to something that is gone, which becomes
it's escapism.
It becomes
that's one of the themes of the game, how you deal with your grief. Yep. So he's, once again, you're just kind of, prolonging your grieving period by interacting with fake versions of your family. So that's his whole logic behind it. So they go in, they're fighting, causes all the conflict. Eventually, it's what causes all the gomages, where the monolith comes about and starts counting down. And we don't have to go into all of that. Clea gets involved. She wants to help her father. She creates all the Neverons. I knew the middle way to fight back against it.
I knew the middle one created everything, basically. Which one's the middle one?
Well, Claire's the oldest.
Claire's the oldest. Okay.
The middle one's Verso, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So I knew the other sister is the one that created all the Neverons, basically.
Yeah. And then she's kind of hands off. Like, she does cause some events that happen, but they're kind of side story-ish, so I won't get into all that.
Which
But that's really what sets everything up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then Alicia, the girl who actually maimed in the fire, she gets kind of brought in because she's grieving as well by her sister. And she's like, well, can we help our parents get out of this painting? And Clay is like, well, why don't you go in and see if you can assist? And basically, not forces her, but highly encourages Alicia to go into the painting. And when she does, she gets overwhelmed by her mother's chroma. That's the kind of magic power they use inside the game. And it turns her into Mael. Mael gets kind of reborn, or Alicia gets reborn in the game as Mael. This is not a painted version. This is her. She basically relives her life inside this paintress as Mael, losing all her memories until they get to the end, to the point where we're at in the game where they kill the paintress. Everybody in Lumiere gets wiped out as soon as that happens, except Perverso and Mael/Alicia. So that's a lot. Hopefully you guys watch Chaz play the game, because that's a lot to spit out there and probably doesn't make a lot of sense to anybody following along.
No, I'll let you explain.
But you basically find out that I think this is where I think a lot of people are going to have the most varying opinions about now how to proceed, how they feel about this game, because you find out most of the characters that you've been playing with the entire game, Gustav, Lune, CL, not only are they gone, they were never quote unquote real to begin with. And without going any further than that, because you find out basically that everybody's not.
Who were they? They may have been real to somebody.
So they were not. They were okay, and that's kind of where this conversation now has to go. Were those lives meaningful? Because they were essentially creations. They were painted people. They were not real in the context of they weren't human beings, I suppose. It's hard to even phrase it that way, but they were gone and never really were real from the get-go. But I guess I'll leave it to you first so I can get my mind kind of wrapped back around it. How'd you feel about that twist? Do you feel like they were real people, not real people? Does it matter anymore? Is the game now a big wash?
I definitely ended up viewing them as real people, just because of my own personal, like, I guess a relationship and attachment I had grown to them. I feel as though it's the same Soma thing where it's like, well, you know, how much of a bunch of ones and zeros, but it seems like it has a personality. Is it a person? You know,
but do they have a soul?
But do they have a soul? And I definitely got the vibe that they were real people, and I wanted to believe that. I feel like that's the happy thing to believe. Oh, real quick in chat, Versa was an interesting character, said Reese. Oh, Robot thanks you for your explanation. Said it was a very good explanation.
It was clear enough. I could be missing some of those details, but that's the narrative that I understood.
Oh shoot, I forgot where I was going. Oh no, I got distracted.
You felt they were real because of the relationships that you had made with them along the way. The journey along the way is what.
Yeah, and I felt they were real, but when it comes to, are we talking the decision at the end? Is that what we're going?
Let's hold off on that. Well, let's hold off on that.
I really
just want to get your sense on if you thought they were real or not.
I thought they were real. I think they were real people because of, I don't know, maybe because the characters did the other characters, Mael and everyone else, they built such a rapport and relationship with them. It was believable. It was realistic. It was realistic. It was they were people that literally were going, well, they're things that are going through strife and persevering. I don't know. I just feel like that's like the good part of my heart wanted me to believe they were real.
And that's fair. And the game, to its credit, does a fantastic job of making you care about these characters. I mean, Gustav, from the beginning, you felt for his ups and downs when he lost Sophie, when he lost Mael, he thought, and had to find her again to his death.
But the game doesn't tell you they're real. It doesn't say you should think.
Oh no,
it
doesn't say one way or the other.
Yeah,
at the end, but the premise at the beginning, without giving you many details, is you should take this world at face value. These are real people that you should be caring about. So when they kind of rip that rug out from under you, you then have to re-establish those feelings. I will say, and I kind of mentioned this at the very beginning when we started talking about the story, I generally hate this trope of it was all a dream. Because it makes everything feel a little useless that you just went through.
So is this going to be another
Because
kudos to the narrative that it's something you don't necessarily like?
so it's a critique. I think that I don't love this direction. I don't think it's bad. A lot of people are just like very much against this period.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's bad. It's a direction that you can go with this story, and I think for everything it is, they have a lot of rationale for it, and a lot of lore, and a lot of. They definitely sell it well. So I'm not trying to act like this is a bad story because I don't like the direction, but I don't love the direction.
No.
And it's really hard because your personal understanding of life is going to come into this. And I'll say I am a religious person. I do believe there's a soul in creation, and I don't feel like that would be the case for the extra level of creative work. Because here's the thing, like, yes, this game does a really good job of making these characters feel real because you have a lot to go off, right? You're seeing them, you're talking with them. But you could take that same logic and apply it to a character in a book. Let's say you just read Lord of the Rings, a really well-written book that you feel like you know these characters.
Aragorn is
you
real.
know Frodo in and out, who he is.
Real. He's real.
Yeah. Is in the same context, are they any more or less real than the characters we're talking about in this game? I think most people would say that the characters in Lord of the Rings are not real people. Like, if you took the book they were in and you lit it on fire, well, that's it, right? If you took that book and you lit it on fire, you destroyed the canvas, is anybody going to bat an eye? No, because they're not real. Now, this takes it to another level because they're more fleshed out, right? They have more sentience. It appears they have free will. Like, and that goes back to what you were saying earlier. Do they really have free will? And this almost gets theological at a certain point. Like, the Desanges are basically gods creating what looks like life. And you could take this so many directions. And I don't know if we want to go down that rabbit hole.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, the whole... I mean, they are like
even how we look at
creators.
Life and like if you believe in God or not, like there's so much to it. I'm not trying to start any kind of religious, major discussions, but there's so many levels to it. I look at it as, if this was a VR game, right? And we could actually go into and interact in this world with a VR character, would we think they're real? Would you say, like, if you killed somebody in a VR world, would you be a murderer? If they were just ones and zeros? And this goes to the Soma conversation too. Because then you could argue any VR game you play with a fleshed out enough character, you're a murderer if you're killing like NPCs or like villains or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Like that's the logic you take with this. And I know this is fantastical, so you could argue there's another layer of creation here, but
you could make the argument that like your attachment to something, I mean, I'm not saying this is the case, but you could make the argument that your attachment to something may not necessarily be whether it is your attachment to something could only grow based on your experiences with something. Like, if something's not real, but you've spent 20 years with it as a friend, talking to it and doing things, it's like, well, again, it's all based on your view. I don't know, like,
and that's what makes this hard. And without getting to the ending decision, even just the moment that happens here, basically Renoir, who's trying to get his wife out of the canvas, the only way he sees to do it is to delete the canvas, erase the canvas and all the people in it, everybody in Lumiere.
Destroy the what is it? I can't think of the word. The canvas. The canvas. Well, there's a word I was thinking. Never mind. Sorry. The visage? Not visage. There's a word I'm thinking of like of something that like isn't there.
The veil?
Veil, yes. I was thinking of the veil.
Yeah. Yeah. And depending on how you look at this now and how you view these people, Renoir is either completely justified because he's getting his real life, from his perspective, wife out of this canvas so she can live, or he's committing mass genocide by murdering all these painted people. So this is where I think a lot of people have to make decisions on what they feel about, is this life, is this not? As of the Soma, I think conversation comes back to play.
What is life? Because there is a... Well, I guess what is this? I mean, but yeah, there's a very deep thing when it comes to things that happen at the end where it's like, like you were saying, are you ending life here? Or are you... I don't know.
Or is there no life to begin with? Yeah. Are these, gods creating life or artists creating characters? Like, that's the decision you as the player are kind of making, because a lot of decisions are happening right now in front of you that you have to decide if you're okay with or not. But eventually, as you said, you have to make a decision at the end that basically reinforces your perspective on that belief, on what life truly is. So that's
And
where
I
this
love.
game is going. Before we go, oh, go ahead.
I just want to say I love that. I love that the game leaves it to your personal beliefs to decide
Hmm.
how things are going to go, and I love that. I love that the game's like,
Yeah,
well, what do you believe? Choose whichever direction, and that's that's going to work out. We see how it works out for you. You know what I mean? I like that.
sure. And I can appreciate that aspect of the story, that it is open. This is a very different direction the game, I think, felt like it was going to go. But I said I can appreciate how much thought went into, okay, this decision and the weight behind it, kind of what it recontextualizes, everything else that came before it. But I do want to propose some other directions the story could have went that I would have personally liked.
Mm-hmm.
What if these, and you can still go with, these painted people aren't real, at least not in the general context, but what if they could become real? What if there is an avenue in this game where, and kind of towards the end, Verso almost seems like it's about to, you could cross that threshold into the real world. I think that would add some weight. Like they could still have this life versus non-life creation versus creator kind of thing. But then it also wouldn't make it feel like all these relationships you had prior were meaningless. If like you could repaint Gustav and then he could escape the painting and actually be a real person, I think that could have added some interesting context. This also could have led to maybe some kind of storyline, like a war between the painters versus the painted. The painted people realize that they're not real and they want to
Mm.
be real, and they find a pathway out of the painting. And you got the painters pushing back and the painted people wanting to get out. Like there's some routes he could have done to give more agency, I think, to the fake slash painted people instead of just like, maybe they weren't real, maybe they didn't matter, maybe they did. Like it's so open ended, it doesn't give them a lot of agency anymore. I know they try to redo it at the end, but even when like Ciel and Lune find out that they're paintings, they don't seem to care that much. Did you notice? Like Ciel's like, well, cool, so death isn't really death anymore. And
Yeah.
Lune's like, oh, what does that mean? I can make a painting and a painting? Like, I don't know. If I just found out I wasn't real, I would care a lot more. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something about that
There
feels weird.
just a thought, but there could have been an avenue for the story where when in the very first act when they get to the island for the first time after leaving
Hmm.
Lumiere, there could have been I think there could have been an interesting story where you never actually play as Mael, where maybe she's kidnapped
Hmm.
for a lot of the game, and your whole goal is to go find her, and and the reason she's kidnapped is because whomever kidnaps her understands what she is and what she can do, and they're like, we need her to free us or destroy us or something. You get what I'm saying? There could have been a story where the whole game is you trying to go save her,
Yeah.
thinking you're saving her, but actually you're like contributing
I feel like
or
the story. I'm sorry. I feel like the way the story plays out though wouldn't work as well if you don't have Mael right there with her. Like
yeah,
you
because
need to
the point
see
is you're
kind of
supposed to
her
grow an
evolution as a
attachment.
character,
Mm-hmm.
her revelations, because she's a very unique character in this world where she's really a world of the painted
Mm-hmm.
and a real person. Like no one else has that exact same
Fair
perspective.
enough. That
So
was
if
just a
you
thought.
lose that, I think your connection changes to these characters. You might be able to more easily be like, oh yeah, they weren't real. They could have even gone like Matrix style with this. Like painted people find out they're painted and could red slash blue pill themselves and decide if they want to know the truth and try to escape or not. Like I think there's just some cool stuff they could have done with the painted people. And maybe they still could. I mean, this ending can go one of two different directions depending what headcanon you end up choosing. And that might even set up some future, I don't know, sequels or something like that. Or maybe this will be a game that's better left as a, one and done. We can kind of get to that in a minute. But
Um,
I don't know.
I personally loved the ending. I mean, do we want to officially go into that? I don't know what else you got.
Let me see if there's anything else in Act Two I wanted to mention. I mean, I think I mentioned a lot of it. Although I appreciate the direction they went, I would have liked to have seen them add just a little more to the painted people's now new motivation instead of just let's just keep our world the way it is, of finding a way to make their world more real. But
I agree
either way,
with you.
we can move
There
into the
was a
ending.
lack of emotion though at the end with Seal and Luna. It is a little odd that they're kind of like peeking into the learning about everything that's going on around them, and they're just kind of like, I mean, although like I'm saying that, but I'm also like, well, what else are you gonna do if you
What are their
realize?
options? Yeah.
What do you when you realize you're not real? Like, what else can they do? They're just like,
But I
I'm
feel
not.
like at least one of them should have like it should have had an existential crisis right there. Like some people would be like, yeah, cool. Like CL's I think reaction of okay, cool. So I'm not real, but I feel real, and I'm not going to die, so that's great.
Like,
I
what
feel
would
like
you do? What
somebody
would
should
you
have been
do
on
if
the
you
other spectrum of that.
like if you found out you're not
I'd
real
go
and
insane.
somebody next to
I'd
you,
be
but you know that
if
somebody next to you
I
has if you know if you realize you're not real and that the people that you know directly have a say in whether that's the case or not. Like, wouldn't that be like, what the hell, man? Like, you. I mean, I guess maybe you're right. There should have been more of like a pissed off,
but
like,
then do
what
you
the heck?
care? Like I don't know. There's a bunch of different I think very valid reactions to
Wouldn't you
finding
hate
that
the
out.
person that's your friend that like has a say in whether you exist or not?
Maybe, but if I knew I wasn't real, once again, you have to have a your own definition on what real or living being means at this point. But if I found out I was straight up like right now, I'm like I'm a VR projection. I don't know if I'd want to keep getting projected. I don't know
Well,
something
that's what
about
I'm
that.
saying. If I found out I'm real and that my best friend or someone next to me uh, has control over whether I'm seeing my loved ones all die continuously and have no home to go to and witness death almost everywhere I go.
Or I might
I
want to be erased, though, is what I'm saying. If I just found that out, I might want to be done. And
yes,
technically, that's
yeah,
what Verso wants. Yeah,
yeah,
like
hmm
Verso. I mean, he cares about people, but I mean, that's Verso's a very complicated character. But at the end, he wants it done. He's like, I'm not real. This isn't a life that I want. That anybody should have. And part of it is because he probably just lived a long life and a lot of pain and whatnot. But
hmm
he also realizes he's not real. At least in his, I think, perspective at
So
that
you're
point. So
right
I
though
don't know. I
that
guess
somebody should have been
there
having
should have been more layers there,
yes,
more
yeah,
reactions. Everybody just being like, or at least everybody in that team just being like, okay, so we're not real. Let's just keep fighting for everybody to try to stay as real as we can be.
because you're
There could
right.
have been
I would
something
have
else pushing back.
I would have flipped out on the person next to me if I realizing how terrible the world is around you and knowing the person next to you has control over that or a certain amount of
Yeah.
control over that. I would have. I mean, not that you could do anything. That person is like they
Right,
control
but there's
everything.
so
But
many layers of reaction. Some people are going to accept it. Some people are going to reject it. Other people are going to be angry about it, want to fight back against one side or the other. And the fact that neither of those other perspectives got portrayed here feels like a missing element. And
there
maybe the
is,
story didn't want to have time for it,
yeah,
but
there is a cool aspect of them at the very again. I don't know if we're touching on the very end, but
I think we
touch.
can jump to the end now. I mean, that's most of I think Act Two.
Well, just saying,
So yeah, at the ending,
there's a part at the very end where things are they're the climax or whatever the things are coming to a head, and CL and Luna are just sitting there, kind of seeing it happen. And like you were saying,
mhm.
um, I don't know. There's almost like a sense, like we were talking about how there should have been more emotion, but there is a sense of just like sense of dread of them just kind of like again seeing people have this like a dialogue or understanding of things while they're just like, all right, well, why are we here now? You know what I mean? Why is anything?
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry, I'm talking in circles. I feel like.
Which also it takes their agency away again. As I said, it makes them feel less real too. They don't have any kind of impact on those last few moments. But anyway, let's hop to the
Well, they're not
ending.
real.
Kind of lay that groundwork, or are they? So you
Real
get to
quick,
the end.
I just want to in chat real quick said Scarlet Twilight said one of them should have had an existential crisis. Yeah, Robot 1,000 points for
Yeah.
being relatable. Veronica said I would crash out. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, mixture of outcomes that could have happened there. But anyway, from the here of the story, they still realize, hey, let's go fight the real Renoir, because that's one who now has gommaged the rest of Lumiere. They're like, if we defeat him, we can then decide what happens to this world. And at that point, they're all still like, well, we can repaint everybody now, because they realize since nobody's real, quote unquote, we can just make them all come back to life, which that makes them feel less real to me. The fact that you bring them all back, like at least if they were a subset was truly dead, maybe the ones who got killed by the Nevrons or something. But the fact they can, I guess the Nevrons kind of are really no. No, they can still come back. Point being, it really kind of messes with it. Their goal now is they go kill Renoir, repaint the world, and they can live their lives as happy as can be. And Renoir, at this point, he's got his wife out, so he's happy. He just wants to get Alicia / Mael out. So his goal is to try to convince her to get out of the painting. So they go through, they have their big fight. You beat Renoir. And Renoir finally leaves because Mael / Alicia is like,
this is a
hey,
really
I'm not
cool,
going to stay here forever.
This is a really cool thing that that happens between him and Mael.
Yeah, because she basically does what her mother did. She's like, no, I'm not going to stay here. I'm just going to help paint this world, get things kind of happy again, and then I'm going to come out of the painting, and it's not going to be, I'm going to live here forever with my grief. He believes her, and then Verso calls her out, and I'll be like, you're full of it. Once he's gone, you now want to repaint this world, and you're going to stay here, because she's doing the exact same thing his mother was doing.
Well, Verso also admits that he thinks the father knows, but the father just like he makes it seem. I think Verso says something like you or I'm just saying. I think the father knows that she was like he's wanting to believe her. I think is that thing, but I think the father knows that she's not coming out. Is what I mean. Verso says something.
Maybe I didn't catch that. I didn't catch that what Verso said. He had some other stuff that I think not really changes that, but regardless, he calls her out, being like, "That is not what you're doing. You've lied to him." And coming from probably the biggest liar in the entire game.
Well, because don't forget, Mael also does something to trick everyone. There's a portal, and she's like, "Yes, I'll leave." And what is she? She's like, "I'll return to the world." Yep. See, there's a portal back home, and Verso or it ends up not being a portal back home, right? Because there's something behind it.
I didn't catch that. What I saw, the portal came up, was that was Renoir trying to show them what was happening to their mother, because she had just been kicked out of the canvas, the paintress, essentially.
Okay.
And he was showing that she is like falling apart, like she's coughing up outside the canvas.
It was a portal back home,
like,
though,
if you don't get out,
kind of.
It was a view back home. I mean, we never actually got to see. I think up to that point, anybody portal out or in. Maybe we did one time. But I'm assuming that's probably what it was. Some kind of portal to the outside canvas. I didn't catch the part that Renoir thought.
Could be wrong. I'd have to watch it again. I got that.
He didn't have a choice though at that point.
Yeah.
He had got defeated. He was leaving the canvas regardless. So if that was maybe an accurate statement that he was just trying to make himself more comfortable with the fact that Mael was staying behind, fair enough. But either way, it comes down to then a decision between Mael and Verso. Verso got to see his mother collapsing outside, which he still has ties to, feels like, yes, you're harming your physical body. And very much, although he's acknowledged that the people in the painting are quote-unquote real as far as their lives mattering, he's also not opposed to wiping him out so his real family survives. So he's trying to get Mael to get out of the canvas because it's best for her. And it gives him a chance to finally end his life. He's done. Like, he's lived, once again, 67 years trying to, be a person he can't be. And Verso's had a rough life. I mean, he's an annoying character in a lot of ways, just because he's a liar, but probably for fair reason. And Mael is on the opposite spectrum of that.
Real quick, before we do, there was an aspect of the story we didn't really touch on. Throughout the story, you're coming across these, faceless people. Everywhere you go, there's these weird, faceless people. I think part of 75% of through the story, you find out that the one that's been helping you throughout the game is actually the father in real life somehow. That's his way of interacting with you from the real world or something like that, right? Renoir. It's actually Renoir as the main faceless.
It is. You're talking about the curator. And
yes.
the paintress, essentially.
Yes.
So they're not in the real world. I mean, their bodies are in the real world. They got trapped inside when Renoir and his wife started fighting for him to get her out. That's what's happened to them over 67 years of being trapped in there. She trapped him under the monolith, and he trapped her on top of the monolith, essentially. And their bodies have been wasting and decaying away, essentially, over that time. So that's my understanding.
And there's also
what happened there.
There's also a child. There's multiple children you see faceless throughout the story. Well,
that's Verso's soul that's left in the canvas. The guy with the top hat is Renoir's soul attached to the canvas, and you get a few of those kind of littered throughout. There are some exceptions, but yeah.
I just wanted to bring that up because
when they go through the
Because
portal, I'm getting there. When they go through the portal at the end, I said Verso is trying to convince Mile to leave, but before that, he steps through that portal that we saw earlier, which he's not supposed to be able to do, but they don't really explain
and
much
this
of
is
that.
such sad. It's very this
And he
whole
sees the little painted boy
that you've been talking
painting,
to a
and
couple times.
it's the remnant of Verso's soul that's been attached to this canvas, continually keeping this world alive, basically. At least the base of it. So Verso wants him to stop because he sees the original Verso's tired of painting. Like in this childlike form, he's done. And then painted Verso's done. He's like, I'm tired of this life. And he sees Mael, who's going to die if she stays there, essentially. So Verso wants Mael to then leave so the canvas can now get destroyed, which was the original issue in the whole premise of everything.
And throughout the game,
And then Mael wants the opposite.
Every time you talk to the kid, he's talking about a lady or something. He's like, "Please have her stop," or "Please do this. It needs to end," or something. Throughout the game, like the faceless figures are saying stuff like that.
Yep. And then Mael is on the other side. She's basically saying, "Nope, I'm staying. You should stay. Our life's gonna be great. I lost you in the real world. I want to spend my last, bit of my lifetime here with you again because her real brother died, etc., etc." She wanted to stay there to, have to, avoid dealing with her grief. So you have to make a decision. You fight as one or the other, and depending who wins, you get very different outcomes. If Mael wins, Verso is repainted, and the whole canvas is repainted. Everybody comes back in the painting. It's basically the original ending you were fighting for. Mael gets.
It's
very clear
it's the
at
happy
the end.
ending. Is it the happy ending?
Yeah.
Though?
And that's the question. But you can very clearly see the newly repainted Verso is very unhappy to be there. You can tell Mael is not doing great. It shows like her painted face in there. It's kind of a striking, almost like horror vibe, but that's one ending if you choose Mael.
I don't know about you, but like the vibe I got from I didn't choose that ending. Just saying, but I watched it after finishing the stream. I went and watched how that ending happened, and I will say immediately there is a strain. I don't know if it's because you have context now of everything, but to me there was like a very lifeless sense behind the characters that are.
Everybody felt even faker.
Hollow. Yeah. Everyone felt hollow. And it's like, it's crazy how just that little bit of context now all of a sudden had me thinking like, this is effed up. I don't know.
Yeah. And it then makes you rethink if you were kind of stuck on if these people are living people or not. You're seeing them in a very different light. They're puppets more than anything else. So the whole real life argument, I don't know, does it still hold up there in that context? Not that you get to interact with them too much anymore after that point, but they're repainted. Their lives were changed based on what Mael wanted, for better or for worse.
Which ending did you choose?
That was one ending. Oh, I chose the Verso ending. Because the Mael seemed wrong at the end.
She seemed wrong to me.
I did not view them as real people.
Yes.
I think the only people that really were going to choose Mael if they were super, super attached to the painted people. Like their party and their character, which fair enough. The game does a really good job at trying to get you connected to these people. But I landed on, I don't feel these people are real. They are creations. Once again, whether I like that direction of the story or not is a different issue. But
I believed that they were real, but I viewed it more as like...
If you believe they were real... And then you went with Verso's ending. You then just committed genocide.
Yes. But
so how do you resolve that conflict then?
To me, it was more like, oh gosh, like a mercy thing, like a favor I'm doing them, where it's like, I don't know.
Was it though? Because a lot of them didn't want that. It didn't seem like. I mean, CL and Lune, especially at the end. Like if you go the Verso route, Lune's pissed that Verso, and in case I didn't clear, if you go Verso, it's the opposite. He kicks Mael out, wipes out the whole canvas, and then only the original family lives. But you get to see a couple of moments with like Lune and CL realizing what's happening. Lune's pissed that she's about to get wiped off because her whole life has been a waste. CL seems a little more understanding because I feel like she was a little blasé about it anyway. But what kind of mercy is that? Those people wanted to live. What good were you doing them?
I don't know. I just didn't think it was I didn't think it was a proper way to...
It's worse for Mael.
I didn't think it was a proper way to exist, though, and I didn't think it was healthy for them to...
For
Mael to be in there and to... It's a fantasy world.
So you're picking the life of one, then, over the life of thousands. I don't know how many people in Lumiere, but that's the decision you're now making. If you
Stop
believe those are real people, you've got the trolley question
Stop
now.
turning my logic on
Do I
me.
save the 1 versus the 1,000? I'm just
They're-
saying this is because a lot of people are very adamant with how they feel about these being living people or not, but they agree that my ending
they're not
is clearly
living.
set up to be the bad
I didn't
ending.
say they were living people. I said I wanted. Well, I think I wanted to believe.
You said
that.
you felt they were real.
No, I said
You felt they were real people. Well, I'm not trying to dissuade you from that. If that's how you feel, you feel. But if you end up going that route where you feel they're real people, then making that decision at the end becomes a lot harder. If you don't feel they're real, there's really only one option. Mael's got to be kicked out because the painting people, they were never real. They should be aware they weren't real, and you're just trying to save the original living family so they can process their grief and get back on with their lives.
I guess you could make the argument that it's especially evil if you end everything like I did, because all of the terribleness and strife of their life, maybe it's normal post that. So it's like, would it have been normal though? I mean, would the Nevrons have gone away?
It should have been. Well, the Nevrons, it depends if you did the side quest or not. There is a route that you might have theoretically killed off all the Nevrons if you go and do some side content.
So you think it would have been a happy-go-lucky life post?
Well, I guess theoretically what could have happened is Renoir could have done the exact same thing for Alicia they did for Alina. Because if Mael gets stuck in there and she doesn't want to come out, and Renoir is finally like, I got to go in and get my daughter, he could restart the entire process over again. And now be a conflict between him and Mael. They could redo the whole thing again. So there's no guarantee that there's going to be peace after this. The only hesitation there, Mael said, or Alicia said before she hopped in, she hid the canvas. So it shouldn't be easy for anybody to find it again. So nobody should be able to come in and disrupt her. But that's probably a short-term plan. So I don't know. Yes, things could have been more peaceful, theoretically, in Lumiere if you had let Mael go back, and it could have been a perfect life for millennia after that, as far as you know.
So
but Mael would have died.
I did a VR genocide. Oh well. I'll stand on it.
So
that's how things are.
That's fair. That's fair. I went the Verso ending because I said I don't feel they're real, which is a complicated thing because
it's also really hard to say no to him. It's really hard to. I don't see how you could have said no to him.
He becomes very sympathetic at the end. Like, he has been very manipulative the whole game. He clearly was lying, and he could have, I think, handled things differently. But when you really know who he is, what he's been through, and what he's asking, I mean, I was with him on it.
And if you're Mael, if you're I know her viewpoint is skewed, but like, is it also worth being around these figments essentially if they're not allowed to like have their free will? Because she took all of it from Verso, so it's like is it worth it to like keep this charade going?
So that's interesting. If we know she took his free will, like, clearly he's doing something she doesn't want. Did she? Because she could. There's an example, and I'm just going to cut to it. There's a side story, like Clea does have a painted version of herself in the game, but when the real Clea saw that her mother created a painted version of it, the real Clea repainted over her, basically took away her free will and forced her to make all the Nevrons. So although most people in there, they should have quote-unquote free will, the ability does exist for the painters to repaint and take it away. So I guess the question is, did that happen to Verso at the end? Did Mael straight up repaint over him? So he was forced to, play in that opera house until he dies? Or was he just then like, well, I got no choice now, I'm just going to play piano? So took the free will away, but not in a, what's a good way to say this, like, she didn't paint him to have no free will. She just left him with no other options so his free will.
And that is a super chilling ending though. When I watched it on YouTube, like he's like sitting there sweating or something, and you can tell he just like you could tell he doesn't want to be doing whatever he's doing, and it's like,
yeah.
And like you said, like when it zooms in on Mael and her face is like, her face is like, I don't know, it's like a cold stare.
They show her it's a cold stare. They show her with the painter's eyes, which makes him think that she is probably actively painting over him. If she's got the painter eyes on, then she was doing something active to manipulate what's going on there. So I don't know. I'll tell you, going that ending with Versal, I think was the right one. It will make second playthroughs of this game different because you're now going in realizing these people's fates. You're realizing that they're not real. Like, does that change how you view them as you adventure with them? Like, does it hurt as bad when Gustav dies? Does when Sophie floof away, does it matter anymore? So I don't know. I still want to replay the game just because the game is fun as can be, but
Yeah.
the story is definitely going to take a very different shift on a second
I can
playthrough.
see how it could eliminate some of your I can't think of the word, your expediency, your how quickly you're wanting
Agency, yeah.
agency. Yes, I could see how it could take away the agency with wanting to ensure that all your characters are healthy and in good places. I don't know. Real quick, Veronica says, "Yeah, I don't know how to describe it, but breaking free and moving on was the way to go, unless I remember the ending wrong." Reese says, "I think it was interesting to see that we could pick Verso or Mael." Veronica says, "Yeah, because it's essentially being trapped in a perfect world that only you know is actually a lie. That isn't the only way to live for me, at least." Well, again, it depends. I get if you're somebody like Luna or CL. I mean, I guess for CL it could have been worth it because all she wanted was her husband back. For her, it may have been a happy ending because Mael probably painted her husband back. So it's like,
So this reminds me too of the Matrix. I can't remember his character. Well, I know his character was like Cyrus. Was that it? The bald
oh,
character
bald
played by the
guy,
one. Yeah.
the guy that he's like, I
So
know the
he
steak isn't
chose.
here, but I want. He's
Yeah,
the guy
so he
eating
chose. He
steak.
knew what wasn't real. Granted, this is a little different because there's a real life tied to that either way. But he chose the fake world over the real world
Hmm.
because it was more pleasing. It was a better life for him. Whereas other people wouldn't choose that when they
Which that's
realize
a
this is
great scene
fake.
where he's
They're
like,
going to immediately
I know
reject
this
it.
steak isn't here, but dang it, it tastes good. You know what I mean? That's a great scene for
Yeah.
him. Sorry.
So it does feel like that. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. This could have been cool if the game maybe went that way, where the painted people then were given that choice to either floof away or not floof away, or find a way to become real. I don't know. There's just granted that may not be the point of the story they wanted to tell. They probably wanted us to feel a little more finite and just make you think about this concept and not have this other avenue where you could kind of have your cake and eat it too. Essentially,
Maybe there should have been
they
an
wanted people to
ending.
really take two different sides.
It would have been neat, like we mentioned it earlier, but it would have been neat for there to be an ending that, like you were saying, tackled and gripped more with what happens when the entire town knows that they're not real and that everything's a
Yeah.
lie. Like,
Yeah,
like,
we don't get to see that at all.
like that would have been kind of an interesting take where it's like, do people just revolt completely on
So I'm
everything?
curious, like, because when Ciel and Lune both got gommage when everybody got gommaged, but
Mm-hmm.
then they got brought back in Act 3 when Miles as Alicia realized she could repaint them. But they remembered everything. They're like, what happened? I just gommaged. When Mael brings back the entire city of Lumiere and Gustav, do they remember what happened, or did she rewrite their history a bit so they're just back in existence? Because if they remember being gommaged, Gustav remembers being stabbed through the heart by Renoir, wouldn't that cause a lot of questions? And wouldn't they have a lot more issues with kind of what's going on, why they're all back in town, everything's all happy again? Like, did they just kill the paintress and everything's happy now? Is
I
that the
get
lie they're
this.
going to spew?
I get the sense that Mael went full tyrannical, like everything must be the way I want it.
Mm-hmm.
I This is my only avenue to any sort of happiness. So she went full. That's my thing. Full dictatorship.
Yeah.
Like everything
Which that
has
takes
to be.
that even further. Yeah.
I don't know. That's what I kind of got. I think that weird zoom in on her to
Mm-hmm.
me was like it was the pure like Anakin, full on dark side. Lost cause
I
after
agree.
that. Although
I
Anakin was
agree.
saved and he turned in the end. I don't know.
Yeah. All right, we haven't been talking for a long time. It's almost midnight here.
Yeah,
But
I'm
a couple other closing thoughts. So a couple other things in the game I just wanted to mention. Did you find the log or journal for Expedition 60?
mm,
The Bear Mighty Muscles. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I don't remember honestly.
So I won't go into all of it. Some of these
You can
expeditions have
spoil it. I
some
mean,
awesome
I'm gonna
backstories.
go
Well, I'm
find
going to
them
tell
all.
this one.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell this one because this one's great. But You find it at the very end in Old Lumiere. It's like in the water. You have to actually have SKA bring it up to you.
Oh,
Apparently,
okay.
there was this expedition that all they cared about and all they believed in was the power of their muscles. And their entire expedition, they left the island with no clothes. They were just jacked as could be. They swam to the continent, and they were so powerful. They made their way all the way to the Painteress. I'm assuming punched down the barrier, and they found out what was going on. And the last guy was swimming back to Old Lumiere to tell everybody, and then he got gommaged. But these were completely naked people, just like super jacked, that were going on their adventures. Like the best expedition history. So you
They,
should read that one if you haven't.
yeah, the game definitely like you phrasing it that way, like explaining it that way. I mean, it definitely feels kind of Fallouty, right? Where you have like all of these different people living almost different lives in each of these shelters. It feels like in Lumiere, there's just so many different, people that have gone through different things that are, which I guess it makes sense. If you're trying to fight against this insane threat that can just kill you at any moment, you're just like, I don't know. I could see how the everybody in Lumiere is just like bat crap insane.
If you open more. So that was a fun one. Did you do any of the romance options?
I did not. I don't think, or I don't know. I didn't even. I don't. I'll be honest. I don't even know if I did or not. I didn't get the sense
They're
that anything was
very
very.
shallow.
Yeah.
Basically, you have the
I
opportunity
went
to hook up
swimming
with
with
CL.
CL or whatever. There was like a scene in the water, or maybe that was Luna.
Did,
There was a
no,
scene
it
in the
was
water.
CL. That can lead to one of the romance scenes. I don't know if you did it or not, but you can technically romance CL and Lune. Both of them are really subtle. I guess I'm going with this is it felt really out of place and unnecessary.
It
Like
doesn't
you
fit.
don't have
That
near the
doesn't fit in the
connection with
story.
them.
No.
Yeah, so I kind of wish it wasn't there. Some people might argue that 'cause they love romances, but this was really superficial to me. So, um, and I know you said you didn't do much of this, but side content, I was just curious what you did. You didn't do the Clea's background stuff. It sounds like you didn't have to fight
I
Clea or anything.
literally last stream I was midway up the tower. So next stream I'm gonna
That's not Clea.
Isn't that not Clay? Oh
Clea's
well.
not the tower.
Oh, last thing I
That's
was doing.
Alicia.
Oh, okay, so I'm in the middle of that right now. Next stream I'll
Okay,
tackle that. Like the
so
people with
that's
the hammers and
Alicia, her
nails or
Axon.
whatever.
Yep. Yeah, that's a long, long level, so that takes a while.
I was like an
Um,
hour into that one and it's still going. So
That one's definitely worth doing. That adds more context. The Clea's background stuff, that's in the Flying Manor. If you make it over there, is really good. I kind of spoiled some of that earlier, but that's a good one. Did you catch any of the Simon and Julie stuff?
I don't know who that is.
Okay, I won't. It's a whole thing. They were on Exposition Zero. Simon's actually the super crazy end boss in the game, if you can make your way
Hmm.
to him. But I won't deal with that. Doesn't sound like you did most of. You didn't do romance. You did a few of the relationship quests.
I didn't do a
Did you do?
lot of those side quests. I there's a lot I got to do. I'm telling you, I finished the
Did you do
story and
the
I was like,
Endless Tower?
no, I got to that though. I saw that. That was the I think it was the sister that was there or something, and she's
Mhm.
like in ghost form or something, and she's like, yeah, you can battle all these different things.
I don't know if how far if you even got into it. I was a little disappointed because you're just in this one big room with a canvas frame, and you just interact with that canvas frame for like, what is it? It's like 33 levels or something, which that would make sense, 33. But you never actually move up the tower, which I found a
Hmm.
little sad because you see this giant tower outside. You're like, oh, I'm going to move up all these levels. No, you just stay in one room.
There
Um,
was
but
one stuff that I never quite figured out. I need to do it. Is there was the red canvases or whatever that are sprinkled around, and they all lead to like some nether
mhm,
white world or something where it's all like,
Painter's Workshop.
yeah, there's something there. I didn't quite figure out what was going on there.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's more than one I'm mentioning, but it's worth doing. I said none of it feels like bloat. They all either have a little bit of story narrative or some lore, or
There was
they
a
have a few that are just
casino.
kind of like fun little
Wasn't there
diversions. But
there was casino that you do a little stuff with, and
I was disappointed with the casinos. You
you
don't
didn't
do
do
much with the
anything.
casino,
No.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting
I
tired.
guess the last thing I wanted to, yeah, I know, we're late. Last thing I want to mention, we kind of touched on this, but studio's next game. I mean, I'm excited for whatever they do. Do we want to see a sequel to this? Do we want to see something brand new? Because one thing I was kind of thinking about, I mean, the title of this game is Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Is this going to be one of those things like Clair Obscur is like the running title for all their games, and then we get different subtitles? They could be different games, but Clair Obscur is just a vague terminology meaning light versus dark.
Could be. I don't know if you saw,
this
but
could be a series.
I don't know if you saw, but a Plague Tale basically just started that. Where like, because they have Plague Tale 1 and 2, they literally during the Xbox event or whatever, they announced some new Plague Tale game that takes place in a totally different like century, and it's like what? I thought.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the thematic titling, and then the game itself could be anything. Do we want to see a direct sequel though? Like, I mean, there's a lot they could do. I've seen theories.
I want to see something that focuses on the writers. Let's move over to the writers. Let's see what's going on with that. You know, it's very much reminds me of like Alan Wake, where Alan Wake like had its own story, and then like it scoots over to the control, and you're like, what's going on over here? You know what I mean? I want to see that kind of like similarities but differences.
Two thoughts. Like, I don't think it's a bad idea, but doing that, we already know the big hook and big twist from playing this game. So how is that going to play into the next game? Because part of this game, what made it so impactful is the big reveals, the big twists. Would we still have stuff to that scale? If we already now know all this history, we can probably guess a lot more where the next story is going to go, make some assumptions. Not saying it still couldn't be cool and fun, but it wouldn't be the same narrative, mind-blowing stuff I think we've seen in this game.
Well, that's up to the writers. That's not up to me.
I'm kidding. There have been some interesting theories, like Verso, the real Verso, isn't really dead. He faked his death because he wanted to be a writer. Technically, he wanted to be a musician. He wanted to stop painting. And a lot of people think about like composers of music. You write music. He might want to go to the writer faction, and now this could be a war between him versus Clair. Like, there's a whole thing they could do there.
It could be interesting. Or I don't know. I mean, but then like the question would be, I guess no, it depends on whatever ending you chose. I want to say, because then the question would be what's if you branch off what's still going on with Mael and them, but that may not have been your ending. I don't know.
Yeah, they'd have to make a canonical ending, one that they're going to go with for the sake of the story. A lot of games do that, and they kind of pick up there. I'll tell you though, the more I think about it, I think I would want the next game to be something different, because I think knowing everything we know about this game is going to bring a lot of baggage with it into a sequel. Like, I'm not saying they couldn't do something really cool and still build upon it, but I'd be really curious to see what they could do with a fresh take on something. Like, maybe it has some themes of this, like the Clair Obscur theming, light versus dark, however they want to phrase it, but do something different, or that doesn't relate to this till later. I don't know, ties itself to it in a game or two. I don't know.
You definitely know their budget will be probably a lot higher for the next one. I don't know if
the studio, I don't know if it's a studio head or someone in it, but they had a quote. They're like, we didn't know what we were doing the first time, so just imagine what we're going to do on the next one, which, a little cocky, but,
I don't know if that's...
some truth there.
Because, well, they're already starting off... It's going to be really hard to start off with a masterpiece, and then how do you go up from there? I mean...
It's true. Catching lightning in a bottle twice is always kind of hard too.
Yeah, it's like going from Empire to Return of the Jedi. Like I like Jedi, but it's not as good. You know what I mean? I
like Jedi better personally. But
really? Oh,
I'm crazy.
All right, stream
I love a good
over.
Is
bye.
My thing.
Unfriend.
I like a good ending, not just a cliffhanger. But
you just like the singing.
Anywho, those are all my thoughts.
You like the blue guy singing, hitting the drums, whatever is. Max Rebo, dumb crap.
Blue Elephant, Max Rebo, yeah. Anyways, I'll just say I did love this game. It's in my top subset of games now. I don't know where I'd rank it. Like, Mass Effect is part of my favorite, but this is probably my top 5 games.
It's that high. Wow. I was gonna say it's one of the best games I've played in the last 10 years. I will say, Soma is up there. I loved Hades. Returnal. This game is sprinkled somewhere in there, and then maybe there's a couple of the games I can't think of. Maybe Stick of Truth, the first one. I really like that one. But this is definitely in my top 5 or 10 in the last decade. Heck, like definitely in the last decade or two. Maybe since the Mass Effect and Bioshocks and all of that stuff, but this was really unique, really good. Yeah. And you said top 5 of all time, top 10 of all time.
Potentially, as I haven't sat here and ranked it, I'd have to make my list. But yeah, like I mean, besides my somewhat critique or issues with the narrative, everything about this game is quality. The story, the gameplay, the environments. Like I could play this game over and over and over. I still want to go back and do a new game plus.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure at some point the narrative's not going to hit the same way, of course, as we already kind of talked about. Going back is going to feel different, but that's true for any game after you kind of know the reveal.
Dude,
going back and play Mass Effect 1 isn't quite the same.
I want the soundtrack so bad for this. I want to get.
Oh yeah, I'm getting that vinyl. But either way, it's up there for me. Maybe it's not exactly 5, but I'm kind of hard pressed to think of too many others like Mass Effect, Hades for sure, maybe Returnal. That's definitely up there. This is close to Returnal for me in some ways. The Returnal has a crazy gameplay hook that's hard to turn away from. But this game's really, really solid, man. I would definitely say top 10. Okay. Maybe the top 5. Maybe that'll be a conversation we can have. What are our top games and kind of rank some things a little more clearly.
Is this your favorite turn-based RPG?
Oh man, that's. I mean, if I'm ranking this so high as my games of all time, I probably should say yes. But Persona, I really like Persona 5. And that is very much this kind of gameplay.
So you have
that game
Persona,
drags a
Final
little
Fantasy
bit.
VII, all the other ones. I guess Pokemon. Pokemon's technically turn-based RPG.
Yeah, I mean, Pokemon's got a lot of nostalgia for me, but I don't know. This one too, like when I think about it as a complete game,
I think this is the best.
Such an
I think this
easy,
is the best. In my
pleasing game to work through. Other games, like there's parts where they bog down or they're too long or there's something about them. Like Persona is a crazy long game. Although I think you should play it. It's well over 100 hours if you're getting close to doing anything complete. This game was, depending how much you do, 30-ish hours to maybe 50 hours if you do like everything, which is not a short amount of time, but it's a feasible amount of time. And I could speed run parts of this if I wanted to, just have a good time running through some main sections, doing some boss gauntlets. Like, it's a fun game and a fun narrative, and it's beautiful to look at and listen to.
Yeah, again, top to bottom, like as much as I love the OG Final Fantasy VII, it has some points where it can drag. Like even though I love the game, it definitely that older style, like when it comes to Pokemon, like even that game, like there were times when you would get into battle and you're just like, I don't feel like battling right now. I just ran into something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if at any point in this game I ever got upset that I entered a battle. Anytime I entered battle, it was just like, oh, cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, this game doesn't feel grindy at all. Like, every moment I was playing it, I was enjoying playing it. Yeah, great game. Great game.
Alrighty, well, shoot. I think that wraps up our talk on Expedition 33. I think we liked it. I think that's the takeaway. We liked the game. Real quick, I guess talking about what else we might want to talk about. Since you mentioned it, we need to at some point do an episode based on. We need to make like our top 10, top 20 games list or something. I think that might be kind of fun.
We might want to cut it down to the top 5. Because if we rant like we do, 20 games will take us like 5 hours. 10. So I might want to shorten the list. All right. I'm up for that conversation. However you want to structure it.
I still want to talk EnteR. We're kind of past a little bit of the super fervor for that, but I had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah. I'll have a hard time critiquing that show personally. It's one that I enjoyed, but tearing it apart, I don't know, it doesn't seem nearly as enjoyable to me. But
that's fine. I at least enjoy doing. I enjoy the way we're doing the podcast now. At least where it's like we talk about something. If it's like we gotta talk about it. Like I felt like this game, I was trying so hard to get you to play it because I was dying playing this game and not having anyone to like talk about it. Because it's not the game you can just willy-nilly talk about because you don't want to spoil it. We gotta get our friend Danny to play it at some point. It's like
agree.
I don't know. But yeah. So I don't know what else
We
you
can
got
chat
going
something
on.
Pokemon too before too long. I'm going to
Yeah.
a card party this weekend, so I'm going to be very much on the Pokemon hype train for a little bit. And then we got what's it, Pokemon AZ around the corner. I know you're playing
I'm
Arceus,
playing
so
Arceus, yeah. Replaying.
I wouldn't mind chatting about something in that realm if you're up for it.
Yeah, good. But yeah, that's all we really got going on. Tune in. What's tomorrow's Friday, so I will definitely be streaming. I don't know. I might stream Arceus or dude, I'm so into Expedition again. I really want to keep playing it. But I don't know. What else you got going on? You playing anything?
I'm gonna try to take a break for a little bit. This game took up more time than I intended to
I know you're
sacrifice.
taking a vacation
So I
or
said,
something soon. This week, next week.
yeah, I mean, I said we're going to Tampa this weekend for card party. And then I've got some other little side projects I'm gonna be working on. So I might take a break for some big games. I might hop on and play what is it? Some more Oblivion because I've been kind of dabbling in that, but
I've been
nothing too crazy. That new Donkey Kong is coming out though relatively soon.
I want to talk about that. That game looks. It's like someone said it. It's like the Odyssey for Donkey Kong.
I think it might be the same development team, or at least a good section of it. But yeah, it's definitely got that vibe to it, so that will be fun. Oh, we never did play that, was it FTC Firebreak, that shooter in the Alan Wake / Control universe. So kind of want to check that out.
Oh, yeah.
So, a few little things I can hop on.
Stream that at some point. Cool.
Well, sounds like a plan, man.
It's late. All right, everyone. That's all we got to. That's all I got to say. Phoenix, thank you so much for joining. It was nice to have having all of you.
Mon ami.
Au revoir. Watch out for mimes. Don't come across them. Remember, always fight any vendor that's selling you stuff. That's your that's my advice. All right, everyone.
Go to Walmart and just start.
You just go to Walmart, and then they give you a better deal.
Get discount. Oh, bye.
Now there's people in chat that are gonna have like existential, like, am I real? Is anything real?
Fading away. Come on. Should have had a flower effect right here and just poof away.
All right. Real quick, very enjoyable.
Bye,
have fun. Fun as always. Night, guys. Yep. Bye, everyone. Nighty night. See you, Phoenix.